It's time for the dreamers.
Welcome, and enjoy the storyline on this channel.
It's time for the dreamers.
In the afternoon, somewhere, a train carrying several carriages was speeding along at high speed. It seemed that the train had lost control and couldn't stop. Meanwhile, around the railway crossing signal, the light was green, and many people were crossing the tracks, unaware of the approaching danger. The railroad workers shouted at them in panic, asking everyone to get out of the way, because the train had lost control. The officer then jumped out of the train. Meanwhile, people looked panicked as they witnessed the incident, before finally running to save themselves. Unfortunately, a stroller wheel got stuck on the train tracks. A young mother carrying her baby looked panicked and anxious, asking for help, while the baby cried loudly. However, the people around her didn't dare to come closer. They could only shout for the young mother to get out of the way quickly, or she would be hit by the train. The out-of-control train was approaching fast, while the mother and her baby were still trapped on the tracks. A mysterious figure was seen observing the incident from behind the crowd of panicked people. Suddenly, the figure moved quickly, disappearing from sight. Suddenly, a loud sound was heard. The figure stopped the train that was about to hit the mother and her baby with one hand. Meanwhile, the young mother just sat helplessly, trying to protect her baby. The fast-moving train stopped suddenly. The carriages behind it collided with each other due to the force of gravity, causing a loud crashing sound, and all the train cars derailed. A strong gust of wind and dust blew everywhere. Meanwhile, the young mother closed her eyes, holding her crying baby close, trying to protect her. After things started to calm down, the young mother opened her eyes. It turned out that a mysterious figure was standing in front of her. The hero stood tall and proud. After that, the mysterious figure turned around and asked how the young mother was, then offered his hand, intending to help the young mother stand up. The young mother looked at the hand of her rescuer, who was about to help her. She accepted the help and sincerely thanked him. However, when the young mother saw the face of her rescuer, her expression changed. The young mother was shocked, and so was the baby in her arms. It turned out that her rescuer was a zombie with a skull-like face. The mysterious figure was named Zombie, Zom from zombie, and the baby was also from a zombie. To distinguish him from others, I'll call him Mr. Zombie. On a bright morning, Mr. Zombie woke up in his bed. He was still wearing his favorite pajamas. His age is unknown. When he became a zombie is also uncertain. However, Mr. Zombie dreamed that one day, zombies could be friends with humans. He dreamed that someday zombies would no longer be oppressed by humans. With that dream, Mr. Zombie was determined to become stronger. Although the journey to achieve his dream was still long, he believed that as long as he worked hard, his dream would come true. To make his dream a reality, Mr. Zombie had helped humans a lot. One day, an airplane lost control and was about to crash into a soccer stadium full of spectators. The spectators panicked and suddenly ran to save themselves. A little boy screamed while pointing to the center of the field, which made everyone turn to look at the center of the field. There, the airplane stopped in the air. A small figure could be seen holding the plane to keep it from falling. It was Mr. Zombie, who was holding the plane with both hands, surprising everyone who saw it, because a zombie had become a hero. At another time, an apartment building caught fire, and several children were trapped in their homes. Mr. Zombie became a hero again, and managed to save the children who were trapped. Even though the children looked uneasy being rescued by a zombie, the firefighters and the residents were also shocked that a zombie became a hero. Mr. Zombie recalled memories from his past, because at first, he wasn't as strong as he is now. One day in the summer, a zombie outbreak began, and it quickly spread, causing an apocalypse. When that happened, Mr. Zombie was studying at his school. While he was in class, a zombie entered the classroom and attacked. Everything happened so quickly that Mr. Zombie didn't have a chance to escape, and was bitten, turning into an ordinary zombie. A zombie, a truly ordinary zombie. The kind you usually see in zombie movies, walking together in a group and making strange noises. Until one day, humans fought back. Without giving any reason, the humans immediately attacked the zombies with guns and missiles, wiping out a lot of zombies. Not only that, humans also burned and turned zombies into fuel. They also used them as forced labor to generate energy in zombie power plant facilities. While lying on his bed, Mr. Zombie was confused about why zombies wanted to eat humans and why humans wanted to kill zombies. However, in order to survive, Mr. Zombie was determined to change. From that moment on, Mr. Zombie started training his body every day by running on the treadmill, lifting weights every day, and not forgetting to swim in the sea every day. Mr. Zombie believed that with hard work, his dreams would come true. Mr. Zombie stopped eating meat and only ate protein like eggs 3 times a day. At night, Mr. Zombie practiced various kinds of gymnastics and aerobics from YouTube. No one knows how long Mr. Zombie kept training. Until one day, he became strong. So strong that he could be considered unbeatable. His body was muscular. He already had the build of a superhero, except for his face, which was still that of a zombie. After gaining strength and also knowledge about this world, Mr. Zombie tried to live among humans. He kept trying to live well and slowly changed the human stigma towards zombies. Mr. Zombie tried as hard as he could to be a law-abiding citizen and a good zombie. Now he lives in an apartment among humans, taking care of himself. When the zombie opened his refrigerator, he realized that his food supplies had run out and it was time for him to go grocery shopping. On a bright day, at a supermarket that Mr. Zombie usually visited to buy his food, the atmosphere seemed calm and ordinary. A friendly cashier served Mr. Zombie attentively. Noticing that his appearance was different from the other customers, the cashier politely asked if Mr. Zombie felt uncomfortable wearing a mask all day, even though she didn't seem to realize who the man she was serving really was. After the transaction was completed, the cashier instructed several employees to help Mr. Zombie move his groceries to the truck. What was surprising was, it wasn't just a few boxes of eggs that Mr. Zombie bought, but a whole truck full of eggs, as if he had his own egg market. Casually, Mr. Zombie went on with his day, busy buying an extraordinary amount of eggs, without his knowledge. 2 journalists who were spying from behind the bushes were closely observing his every move and action. The 2 journalists were obsessed with Mr. Zombie's identity and determined to uncover who was really behind that mask. Their curiosity seemed to grow even stronger. Even after Mr. Zombie finished shopping. After leaving the supermarket, Mr. Zombie saw a poster that caught his attention. On the poster, there was a picture of a man he knew, named Goo. It was clearly written that Goo was an SSS-level zombie, which means he is a dangerous zombie with power on par with a zombie boss. The reward offered for capturing him reached 9,999 yen. Mr. Zombie looked surprised as he examined the poster closely, as if he recognized the figure on the poster. Meanwhile, the 2 journalists who were spying continued to follow Mr. Zombie after seeing him lift a large airplane on the soccer field. They began to doubt the truth of the story they had heard from the media, feeling that maybe the story was exaggerated. Even so, their curiosity kept driving them to follow him so they could find out whether Mr. Zombie's extraordinary powers were real. When they refocused on Mr. Zombie, they were shocked to see him lifting a big truck easily, even raising it into the air like a superhero. The ground beneath him cracked, and the truck flew high, leaving the 2 reporters in confusion and amazement. Mr. Zombie flew so high that he eventually passed Earth's atmosphere, even reaching outer space. This scene was so extraordinary that the astronauts inside the spaceship were stunned, not understanding what they had just witnessed. However, in an abandoned and isolated city, a group of tall zombies lived there. Unlike ordinary zombies, they were not mindless zombies who had lost consciousness, but had their own thoughts and feelings. In that abandoned city, the zombies began to feel hungry. A young zombie complained to his mother about his empty stomach, but the mother could only advise her child to be patient and hold on a little longer. At night, Mr. Zombie arrived in the city, bringing a truck he had bought from the supermarket. Calmly, he landed the truck on the ground. He immediately attracted the attention of the zombies in the city. They welcomed him with great respect, calling him their king. A nervous zombie child asked why Mr. Zombie didn't drive the truck into their city like humans usually do. Mr. Zombie just smiled and explained that he didn't have a driver's license, which amazed the zombie children with this new knowledge about the outside world. The abandoned city had now become a territory ruled by zombies, where Mr. Zombie ordered them not to eat humans, but instead to replace their protein source with eggs. Then, Mr. Zombie entered a building where the leaders of the zombie group were gathered. They were all triple zombies, who had become loyal followers of Mr. Zombie. Their names were Lang, Fur, Agan, Agu, Farmin, and Blackie. As soon as Mr. Zombie opened the door, his loyal followers were already lined up neatly to welcome him. Mr. Zombie stuck a wanted poster on Agu's chest, warning him not to hurt humans. Agu nervously apologized, admitting that he found it hard to control his body when he saw humans. After that, Mr. Zombie sat casually on a sofa, with an air of authority. His arrival was not only to feed the zombies, but also to listen to reports from his followers. Blackie, one of the loyal zombie followers, reported that their numbers kept increasing, even though they often had to move to avoid being detected by humans. Farman, another more aggressive zombie, interrupted the conversation and expressed his desire to go to war with humans. He even mentioned that his chainsaw had become rusty because it hadn't been used to kill for a long time. Mr. Zombie wisely advised Farman not to be hasty, reminding him that humans can be very frightening and dangerous. Meanwhile, beating between the zombie leaders was interrupted by the sound of a low-flying airplane near them. An Air Force plane could be seen flying low over the city, and inside, a woman was observing something in front of her. Inside the plane, a woman who appeared to be the leader of the mission was focused on checking the radar screen and the statistics displayed on the monitor. Her eyes were fixed on the data board showing stable conditions, and her subordinates confirmed that all signals were normal and the equipment was ready to use. The woman then asked for information about the cargo the plane was carrying, and it turned out that the cargo was a large bomb scheduled to explode in 20 minutes in an abandoned city. Satisfaction was clearly visible on her face as she thought about her plan to destroy the city. However, her suppressed anger began to show, as if recalling old trauma involving the zombies. Meanwhile, the plane ready to drop the bomb was already flying over the abandoned city, and the zombie leaders began to sense the presence of the plane. Farmint, one of the zombies who seemed careless, suggested attacking and destroying those humans immediately. However, Mr. Zombie, as a wise leader, held Farmint back and forbade him from acting recklessly. He knew very well that Farmint would lose control if he faced humans directly. Instead, Mr. Zombie ordered the other zombie bosses to immediately evacuate the area. With a firm attitude, Mr. Zombie emphasized that he would personally take care of those humans to protect his kind. Meanwhile, the female leader inside the plane was still closely monitoring the radar screen. Several infantry transport vehicles were seen arriving near the city, and the leader ordered the ground troops to rescue any surviving human civilians and carry out evacuation. In the next 20 This military operation seemed to be aimed at attacking the zombies in the city. At the open rear door of the plane, a trained mutant stood proudly. He was an individual highly skilled in combat, ready to take down any zombie that appeared in front of him. With confidence, this man declared that this mission was his, and if the zombie boss appeared, he would take him down without hesitation. In the abandoned city, the zombies began to grow restless and gather as if ready to face the coming threat. Elsewhere, a mad scientist named Faye was busy reviewing the statistics while monitoring the situation in the abandoned city. Faye received a report from his colleague, Professor Jamie, who informed him that the Extraordinary Academy had discovered the presence of the zombies. The Extraordinary Academy is the group responsible for deploying air forces and ground units. Hearing the report, Faye smiled slyly and immediately pressed a red button, which turned out to be the button to start a cruel experiment. Not long after, a prison cage full of people screaming for help was dropped into the middle of the zombie crowd. The zombies immediately surrounded those people, who seemed to be used as bait to attract their attention. Soon, the order for a rescue operation was sent to the ground troops who were already prepared near the city. The ground troops began to move, trying to clear a path to save the trapped people. A female soldier looked frustrated, because their shots didn't seem to be able to take down a single zombie. In the midst of the chaos, 2 zombie children were seen sitting helplessly in the middle of a hail of bullets that couldn't touch them. Mr. Zombie, who was standing next to them, blocked all the bullets aimed at the children, protecting them from harm. Seeing this, a squad leader from the ground troops, who couldn't believe that the zombie couldn't be taken down, then used a rocket to attack Mr. Zombie. The rocket attack hit its target directly, causing a huge explosion. However, after the explosion subsided, the squad leader's subordinate reported that the target they attacked didn't seem to be a zombie but rather a human who always disguised himself as a zombie and often saved people. The squad leader was shocked to receive the report, realizing that he had shot the wrong person. On the other hand, in the midst of the explosion's smoke, Mr. Zombie appeared to stand calmly while scratching his head, as if nothing had happened. The tension that had built up now disappeared just like that. Meanwhile, at the back of the plane, a trained mutant soldier, who was ready to jump into the battlefield, received news that a zombie boss had been detected in the rear zone. Without hesitation, he immediately jumped out of the plane, diving toward the battlefield, with unwavering confidence and skill, as if nothing could stop his advance. Faye, the mad scientist, and her colleague, Professor Jamie, were closely observing the course of the battle. Professor Jamie reported that the ground forces had successfully rescued all the hostages who had been imprisoned earlier. However, he also suggested that these troops might be getting overconfident with their achievements. Hearing the report, Faye wanted a more exciting battle. An evil smile appeared on Jamie's face, who immediately began preparing something even more terrifying. In the midst of the chaotic zombie crowd, an unexpected event occurred. One of the zombies suddenly changed in a strange way. The zombie's hand grew rapidly, and in an instant its entire body transformed into a giant zombie monster with many forked tongues. With a loud, furious roar, the zombie monster spread fear around it. The zombie was the boss zombie that had previously been detected in Zone B. The ground forces immediately received a warning about the appearance of the terrifying boss zombie. The squad leader, who had previously felt guilty for shooting the wrong target, now ran quickly toward the battlefield, surprising his subordinates. The squad leader's target was Mr. Zombie, who looked confused as the squad leader approached him with determination. The squad leader immediately jumped and grabbed Mr. Zombie with the intention of saving him. Quickly, he carried Mr. Zombie and brought him back toward his troops, surprising his subordinates. Without wasting any time, the squad leader threw the zombie into a car, asking his subordinates to quickly drive the car and take them away from that place, hoping this could be a way to make up for the mistakes he had made. Having little choice, his team followed the orders and immediately sped up the vehicle. During the journey, a red-haired girl, who was also part of the evacuation, started to suspect that Mr. Zombie was not an ordinary zombie. She began to feel curious about the true identity of the zombie who was now considered a victim. Meanwhile, Mr. Zombie just laughed awkwardly, confused by all the misunderstandings happening around him. In Zone B, a team of soldiers was fighting against the zombie boss, who had now turned into a mutant zombie. They tried to find a way to defeat the creature, which seemed much stronger and more dangerous than before. The zombie boss, with incredible strength, lifted a large bus and threw it into the air with a quick and furious motion. However, as the bus flew, a skilled swordsman named Marshall arrived at the scene with incredible agility. With a single sharp swing of his sword, Marshall sliced the bus into two pieces, cutting it perfectly. The troops who witnessed the event cheered with excitement, feeling confident that victory was already within their grasp. Marshall stayed where he was, confidently waiting for the next attack from the terrifying zombie boss. With remarkable calmness, he ordered his troops to immediately rescue the trapped civilians and evacuate them to a safer place. Behind his calm demeanor, Marshall was confident that he could defeat the zombie boss, which had now become a major threat to them. Meanwhile, the squad leader asked about the whereabouts of the zombie boss, and after hearing that Marshall was fighting the creature, they felt more at ease, knowing that Marshall was someone they could truly rely on. Amidst the crowd, Mr. Zombie, who had previously been brought by the squad leader, also joined the evacuation. However, he couldn't stay still. His face looked anxious, and he felt moved by the conversation about the zombie boss that Marshall was fighting. Meanwhile, the red-haired girl, who was busy helping the civilians, started to feel anxious and curious, because she no longer saw the zombie around them. Back in Zone B, Marshall faced the zombie boss, which had now transformed into a more terrifying creature. With deep empathy, Marshall looked into the zombie's eyes, feeling the suffering behind the creature's cruelty. The zombie boss growled with a terrifying sound, and immediately launched an attack. However, Marshall, who was highly skilled in combat, quickly unsheathed his katana with swift movements. His sword moves were so smooth and sharp that no human could see them clearly. When Marshall's sword touched the zombie boss's body, the zombie boss's body was split and shattered into several pieces, cut by Marshall's extremely skillful sword. After that, Marshall sheathed his sword and gave a final salute to his lifeless opponent. He bowed his head for a moment, so that his enemy could rest in peace. As he was about to leave the place, Marshall saw another zombie that caught his attention. The zombie, who had previously been by Marshall's side, now stood frozen in front of the zombie boss's dismembered body. The feeling of sadness and loss was clearly visible on its face. Marshall could feel it even though he knew that the zombie was an enemy. However, behind that terrifying appearance, there was a human side that couldn't be ignored. Mr. Zombie, who was grieving, stood silently in front of his friend's destroyed remains. His gaze was empty, just staring at the dismembered corpse before him. But unexpectedly, Marshall quickly attacked him. In the aircraft's control center, news of Marshall's victory spread quickly. Loud cheers filled the room, celebrating Marshall's success. Their captain, Violet, immediately ordered her team to document this moment as evidence of Marshall's important contribution in the battle against the zombie threat. However, the monitoring team detected the presence of another zombie boss. Their confidence in Marshall's abilities was very high, and they believed this new threat would soon be dealt with. However, the atmosphere changed when a team member monitoring the data began to feel uneasy. The data showed that the battle between Marshall and the zombie happened very quickly. But the result was truly shocking. In an instant, Marshall disappeared from their radar, leaving Captain Violet shocked. In Zone B, Marshall was hanging helplessly from a pole. His body was badly injured from Mr. Zombie's attack. Although Mr. Zombie appeared calm, he was still overwhelmed by deep grief over the loss of his friend. Instead of killing Marshall, Mr. Zombie left him in critical condition, giving Marshall time to reflect on the cruelty that had occurred. In the aircraft's control center, the team began to panic as the data showed that Marshall's life signal was almost completely gone. Chaos erupted in the control room, made worse by the fact that the civilian evacuation was not yet complete. Captain Violet, who witnessed the incident, could only stand in silence. Anger and helplessness filled him, while his hatred toward zombies continued to eat away at his mind. Without saying a word, he made a drastic decision. With swift movements, Violet left the aircraft, jumped down to directly lead the ground troops, determined to face Mr. Zombie himself. As his body plunged from the sky, Captain Violet immediately prepared his attack, targeting Mr. Zombie, who stood motionless, shocked to see the woman falling from the sky like a shooting star charging toward him. However, as soon as Violet's sword touched Mr. Zombie's body, his extraordinary strength caused the sword to shatter instantly, leaving Violet shocked and confused. After landing nimbly near Mr. Zombie, Captain Violet immediately jumped back, keeping his distance while trying to assess his opponent's strength. In the air, Violet's subordinates in the plane kept warning that such reckless actions without proper coordination would only make it harder for them to provide support. Meanwhile, Captain Violet stood tall, closely observing Mr. Zombie. He realized that the zombie in front of him was much stronger than expected, and if he wasn't careful, his fate could be as bad as Marshall's, who was now seriously injured. Mr. Zombie seemed to feel guilty about Marshall's condition. The zombie spoke anxiously, worried that he would be hated by humans, even though he had tried hard to be accepted. Captain Violet, who was a little surprised to learn that his zombie opponent could speak, began to conclude that this was not an ordinary zombie, but rather a mutant or a different variant. With burning hatred in his chest, Captain Violet gripped his new, stronger sword and got ready to fight again. Mr. Zombie tried to explain that all of this was just a misunderstanding, but Violet kept attacking him. He believed that a talking zombie would only meet death when the time came. Violet launched his attack with his signature move, but Mr. Zombie just dodged nimbly. He seemed more interested in talking and explaining something. Violet moved quickly and launched his next attack. The attack was so powerful that it destroyed the buildings and infrastructure around them. However, Mr. Zombie easily dodged, unaffected by the attack. After that, frustration and anger took over Violet, who felt that his opponent was just toying with him. On the other hand, the ground team managed to rescue Marshall and bring him into the car. Marshall, who was in critical condition, began to ramble while being fanned by one of the soldiers. The team on the plane reported that the evacuation of civilians was complete, and they asked Violet to retreat. However, communication with the team was cut off, and Captain Violet could not hear the warning. Back in Zone B, Captain Violet and Mr. Zombie were jumping around on top of the building, as if involved in a chase. Mr. Zombie jumped with style, while Captain Violet looked increasingly annoyed, shouting why the zombie just kept running away from him. With mounting frustration, Captain Violet focused his strength and used his level 2 Aikido technique. This technique, inspired by Japanese martial arts, combines the movements of drawing the sword, attacking, and sheathing it again in sequence with high speed and precision. In an instant, with the help of advanced boots equipped with technology comparable to rocket power, Violet shot forward at incredible speed, chasing after the zombie that kept trying to escape. Finally, Captain Violet managed to catch up with Mr. Zombie and swung his sword with full force. The sword struck the zombie's body, knocking it hard to the ground. Captain Violet stood tall. His face was filled with confidence and satisfaction, certain that the attack had eliminated his target. He ordered his team to lower the altitude of the aircraft so they could pick him up. Meanwhile, in a distant place, Faye, a mad scientist, heard from his colleague that the civilians they had previously trapped inside the cave as food had been successfully rescued. Faye, who was still busy with his plans, remembered that they had a spy working for the organization they were planning to sabotage. On the other hand, the rescued civilians cheered with joy, jumping up and down in gratitude for the bravery of the soldiers who managed to save them. However, on the plane carrying a powerful bomb, one of the pilots working for Faye began to act suspiciously. His movements caught the attention of the other crew members, but before anyone could react, he pressed the red button that activated the bomb launch. In an instant, the deadly warhead, capable of destroying an entire city, was released without warning. The team at the control center, unaware of the sabotage, was still celebrating their success in saving the civilians, believing that the main mission was complete. However, the celebration came to an abrupt halt when the pilot's shouts were heard, warning that there was a traitor among them and the bomb had been dropped. The sense of relief that had filled them turned into deep fear as they realized the great threat now hanging over their city. Captain Violet, who had previously felt that everything was under control, felt immense pressure when the bad news reached her. His team reported that an enemy spy had infiltrated their ranks and dropped a bomb. With a tense face, the captain looked up at the sky, trying to process this terrible situation. There, he saw the bomb hurtling down at high speed. With less than a minute before a massive explosion would destroy the entire city, the team on the plane immediately prepared for turbulence, opened the cabin door, and lowered the plane's altitude so the captain could get back in. However, to avoid the bomb explosion, the captain had to jump using the leg booster, the device he had previously used to chase Mr. Zombie. With all his strength, Captain Violet tried to escape. However, suddenly his leg booster failed to function. With the booster out of power, the captain felt helpless, even starting to blame himself for not recharging the device before the mission began. When he felt someone watching him, he turned to his left and found Mr. Zombie staring at him intensely, as if he had listened to all his complaints. Mr. Zombie grabbed the captain's body and spun him in the air. His movement wasn't for revenge, but to help him get back onto the plane. With great strength, Mr. Zombie threw the captain into the air as if he were throwing a baseball. The captain shouted. His body was floating, but luck was on his side. He landed safely inside the plane, although he was quite shaken. His team immediately approached to check on his condition. But instead of feeling grateful, the captain's anger flared up again when he realized that Mr. Zombie was still alive. Meanwhile, the nuclear bomb was about to reach the abandoned city, potentially destroying everything, including the civilian zombies still there. On the ground, Mr. Zombie took action. With strong determination, he stomped his foot until the ground cracked, then shot into the air at rocket speed. As he approached the nuclear bomb, Zombie reached out his hand, using his power to stop the deadly weapon. This incredible act was witnessed by everyone, including Faye, who now stood silent, watching the heart-stirring scene. A massive explosion occurred in the sky, creating a chilling void. Captain Violet was stunned, finding it hard to believe what she had just witnessed. A mutant was able to stop the bomb with his bare hands, preventing the destruction of the city and saving countless lives. After everything was over, Mr. Zombie stood firmly on the ground. His body remained intact, uninjured, even though his clothes were torn, and only a few scraps of fabric were left. With a blank expression, he scratched his back, irritated by the remaining scraps of clothing. After the massive explosion shook the area, Faye decided to pack her things and leave the location for a while. However, her colleague remained busy analyzing data that showed signs of life in the blast area. Faye knew that sabotage against the Extraordinary Academy was nothing new to her, and she was sure this wouldn't be the last time. With strong determination, he promised to destroy the organization in the future. Finally, the two of them left the location using their aircraft, heading to a safer place. Meanwhile, on the Extraordinary Academy's aircraft, Captain Violet looked devastated. His face was gloomy as if his dignity had been shattered. He lowered his head, unable to say anything. Two of his team members who were nearby felt worried about the captain's gloomy condition. However, one of them understood the burden the captain was feeling. He had spent his entire life fighting zombies, only to end up being saved by one of them. A team member approached, bringing the latest data about Mr. Zombie's identity. The data showed that the zombie was suspected to be the masked hero who had recently become known. The team confirmed that the zombie had been living in the city for a long time, even though he deliberately hid his identity. Captain Violet gripped the tablet tightly until it cracked. His expression was a mix of confusion and disbelief, similar to the previous squad leader who felt the same disappointment. After that incident, a bright afternoon enveloped the city. However, fear still gripped everyone who saw Mr. Zombie walking past them looking like a homeless man. Mr. Zombie, who didn't care about the suspicious looks from people, headed to a public phone to contact his friends. On the other end of the line, an enthusiastic voice said they were okay and had made it out safely. Most of them were unharmed and were looking for a new place to settle. Mr. Zombie felt relieved to hear the news, promising to look for them once they found a safe place to stay. After a day full of pressure, Mr. Zombie finally went back to his apartment to rest. However, as he was about to enter his apartment, he discovered that his security camera system had been hacked by the Extraordinary Academy. The team on the plane, monitoring his every move, kept watching through the surveillance camera screens. Mr. Zombie, who quickly realized that he was being watched, turned toward the camera with a sharp gaze, as if he knew they were spying on him. Captain Violet and her team were shocked and frozen in place, feeling that their presence had been exposed. Sometime later, Mr. Zombie was busy exercising while listening to rock music, trying to boost his spirits, when he glanced at the photo of his friends whom he considered family. Memories of them came back to his mind. He wondered if they had settled in their new place and planned to visit them soon. However, that peace was suddenly shattered. The captain of the Extraordinary Academy, Violet, made an unexpected visit. She barged into Mr. Zombie's apartment without permission. Arrogantly, the captain ordered her security team to take everything from the apartment, from the kitchen, bathroom, bedroom, to kitchen utensils like pots, bowls, and ladles. The security officers immediately spread out and began carrying out the orders. Meanwhile, Mr. Zombie, who was shocked, fell to the floor. Confused, he started thinking about reporting this disturbance to the police. Captain Violet took out a legal document and introduced herself as the captain of the department from the Extraordinary Academy. The document stated that Mr. Zombie had been accepted as a member of the Academy even without his consent. With a relaxed attitude, Captain Violet acted as if barging into someone else's home and claiming him for the organization were no big deal. Captain Violet then ordered her security team to secure Mr. Zombie and take him out of his apartment. However, Mr. Zombie strongly refused and fought back fiercely. He felt that he had never heard of the organization, let alone wanted to join. Resistance occurred, although it was only in the form of subtle resistance, which caused the security officers to get injured one by one as a result of his refusal. Finally, Mr. Zombie was captured and put into a vehicle belonging to the Extraordinary Academy. One of the Academy team members, Dawn, began to doubt the captain's decision. He felt that this step was too hasty and inappropriate, considering the Academy had strict criteria for recruiting new members. He also reminded them that each dormitory at the Academy was specially designed for selected members, so if Mr. Zombie was brought there, he would not have a suitable place to stay. However, Captain Violet insisted. He even stated that Mr. Zombie could stay with him if necessary. With an almost desperate determination, Captain Violet seemed so eager to recruit Mr. Zombie because he saw extraordinary potential in Zombie that could help the Academy achieve its goals. The security officers, who had received Captain Violet's orders, obediently began gathering all of Mr. Zombie's belongings and moving them to the captain's residence. Meanwhile, Mr. Zombie was still confused by the sudden action. The two of them stared at each other in silence, each waiting for the other to explain their intentions first. Captain Violet's sharp gaze made Mr. Zombie feel intimidated, and in his mind, He began to wonder if he was really going to stay at the captain's house. However, when Captain Violet gave a signal in a firm, matter-of-fact tone, Mr. Zombie could only freeze, feeling there was no room to question the order. Strange thoughts began to pop up in his mind, imagining the absurd possibility of a human having a relationship with him, a zombie. But he quickly brushed off the idea, feeling that it was impossible. Captain Violet finally revealed that Mr. Zombie would sleep in the guest room. Hearing that, Mr. Zombie felt nervous, almost wanting to admit that he wasn't human. However, before he could say anything, Captain Violet seemed uninterested in listening. With confidence, the captain took off his pair of boots, which surprised Mr. Zombie. He could only stare, confused by the action. Then, Captain Violet revealed something shocking. Those boots were not ordinary shoes, but rather robot legs attached to his knees. Calmly, the captain began to tell the story of how he had amputated both of his own legs. As he told the story, the captain's gaze turned blank, as if memories from his past began to replay in his mind. Captain Violet recalled the dark days when the zombie outbreak struck his village, back when he was a child. His parents, who had been infected and turned into zombies, attacked and bit his legs. In his desperation to survive, he decided to cut off both of his own legs. Besides that, he also had to kill his parents who had become monsters, an act he could never forget. That trauma planted a deep hatred towards zombies, making him swear to kill every zombie he encountered. Hearing that story, Mr. Zombie chose to remain silent, holding back the urge to reveal his identity. Fortunately for Mr. Zombie, Violet didn't notice the strange behavior he was showing. Feeling uncomfortable with the situation, Mr. Zombie tried to divert attention by asking about the Extraordinary Academy. Captain Violet, who introduced herself firmly, explained that the Extraordinary Academy is an organization dedicated to fighting zombies. She gave a long historical overview about the first zombie outbreak that happened 1,000 years ago. 2 centuries later, the ancestors of mankind founded the Academy to fight against that threat. Since then, this academy has become a symbol of resistance and a place specifically designed to develop talent for future zombie outbreaks. Meanwhile, Mr. Zombie tried to recall how he first turned into a zombie. However, his mind could only bring up vague memories about the outbreak of the first epidemic. He pretended not to know much about that history, even though deep down, he felt a strong connection to the story told by Captain Violet. After a while, Violet didn't continue the conversation any further. She reminded Mr. Zombie that he had to report to the academy the next day, because his name had already been registered through a special channel. A subtle threat could be heard in that warning. If Mr. Zombie tried to run away, the academy's best experts would investigate his motives. Before leaving, Violet introduced one of her team members, a girl named Dawn, who would be responsible for escorting Mr. Zombie to the academy. Mr. Zombie, who found the name unfamiliar, just nodded resignedly, accepting the reality he had to face. The next day, Dawn appeared before Mr. Zombie, ready to take him to the academy. The next day, Mr. Zombie and Dawn arrived in front of the Extraordinary Academy gate. Dawn looked cheerful and full of enthusiasm. However, Mr. Zombie still couldn't remember who Dawn really was. When she realized that Mr. Zombie didn't remember their previous meeting inside the armored vehicle, a disappointed expression appeared on Dawn's face. Once Mr. Zombie's memory returned, he recognized Dawn as the little girl he had met before. In a teasing tone, he commented on Dawn's petite figure, which offended her a bit. However, Dawn chose not to respond to the comment, realizing that they now had a new relationship as fellow Academy members. Dawn then invited Mr. Zombie to take the Academy entrance exam. Mr. Zombie felt confused and wondered whether he really had to take the exam. For Dawn, the entrance exam is an absolute requirement, especially for prospective students who want to be part of the Extraordinary Academy. He explained that this exam not only measures physical ability, but also skills in killing zombies. For example, he mentioned that applicants to the academy must be able to surpass the world record for the 100-meter sprint in 9.58 seconds, even if it's just by 1 second. Mr. Zombie felt pressured by the high standards, and at that moment, he began to understand why this academy was named Extraordinary. Dawn, who saw the surprised expression on Mr. Zombie's face, tried to guess what was on his mind. Meanwhile, Mr. Zombie thought to himself that the Extraordinary Academy was more like a mental hospital filled with crazy people. A few minutes later, the crowd of exam participants began to gather. The atmosphere was thick with competitive energy, as the participants seemed ready to show their best abilities. In the crowd, Mr. Zombie, who was taller than most people, casually lifted Dawn and sat her on his shoulders, because her small body made it hard for her to see in the crowd. In the back row, a bald man looked annoyed and grumbled, cursing Dawn for being too noisy. Dawn didn't stay silent, trying to shout back. Meanwhile, Mr. Zombie stood calmly. He imagined, what if someone who could lift heavy objects in the human city didn't have to take the entrance exam? However, Dawn explained that at the Extraordinary Academy, there is no favoritism. Many students have extraordinary abilities, like lifting airplanes, and this academy operates under strict regulations from the previous government. Dawn also mentioned that every student has their own secrets, and no one really pays attention to news or information related to the Extraordinary Academy. The atmosphere began to change when a man with a prosthetic leg arrived. The middle-aged man, who turned out to be Captain Chen, the head of the sports department, came to lead the entrance exam that day. Captain Chen began by giving a brief background about the history of the academy, explaining how this institution was founded by the ancestors to fight against the zombie threat. He tried to speak in an inspiring way, but his speech suddenly stopped. Mr. Zombie accidentally became the center of attention when he called out Captain Chen's name to ask what would happen if a zombie was found inside the academy. Casually, Captain Chen replied that they would tear the zombie apart, destroy it, and hang its corpse at the academy gate as a warning. He even added that other procedures included sterilizing the zombie, which was then explained as cutting off certain body parts. Mr. Zombie fell silent, holding back the fear that arose upon hearing the terrifying procedure, while Captain Chen smiled meaningfully. After the introduction was over, the entrance exam began. The applicants prepared with intense focus, waiting for the referee's signal. As soon as the signal was given, they started running at incredible speed, whipping up strong winds as they moved too fast for the naked eye to follow. Their movements were so fast that only shadows could be seen moving. The fastest runner was a man with orange hair named Wu Chen-su, who managed to finish the track in 3 seconds. Meanwhile, Mr. Zombie, who ran at his usual speed, felt left far behind by the other participants. The next test was shooting. The participants tried to show their best abilities. Meanwhile, Captain Chen explained that shooting skills are fundamental for fighting zombies. Mr. Zombie, who felt uncomfortable with the whole situation, thought to himself that this academy was more like a mental hospital teaching how to kill zombies rather than providing wiser theoretical knowledge. When he tried to focus on the target, Mr. Zombie saw Dawn beside him. Dawn, confidently, pulled the trigger and fired 4 bullets with perfect precision, hitting all the designated targets. Dawn passed the shooting test brilliantly, and a proud smile appeared on his face. Seeing Dawn's skill, Mr. Zombie felt challenged, and a bit insulted by the extraordinary abilities of the other participants. Several exam participants failed the test and took out their anger on the straw dummies provided as targets, showing the tension that filled the exam. Mr. Zombie, who felt anxious throughout this exam, was worried that his actions would attract more attention than he wanted. They then continued to the next test, which was the javelin throw. Captain Chen explained that to pass, participants must throw the javelin at least 80 meters, and to qualify, the distance must reach 100 meters. The participants started throwing the javelin one by one, while Captain Chen closely observed, calling out the names of those who qualified and those who failed. When it was Mr. Zombie's turn, he tried to hide his true potential and felt trapped among people he considered crazy. Captain Chen checked Mr. Zombie's data, who was registered with a height of 182 cm and a weight of 72 kg in information provided by Violet. Violet recommended Mr. Zombie because of his extraordinary strength, but Captain Chen felt doubtful. Mr. Zombie's test results only met the minimum standard, and Captain Chen began to suspect that he might be hiding his true strength. The day went on, and the entrance exam continued with another throwing test. Chang-su, the next participant, threw the javelin with incredible strength. The javelin flew steadily and shattered a mannequin with impressive precision. Not just one, but 3 mannequins were destroyed and thrown out of the stadium, crashing into a street sign outside. This incident drew the attention of the nearby residents, and with a distance of 32 kilometers recorded on Captain Chen's stopwatch, Chang-Su immediately qualified. Now it's Mr. Zombie's turn to throw. As Chang-Su walked past Mr. Zombie, he gave off a strong sense of intimidation. Mr. Zombie held the javelin and was ready to throw. However, he was stopped by Captain Chen, who was suspicious. Captain Chen asked if Mr. Zombie was really recommended by Violet, because Mr. Zombie's test results so far were quite ordinary. He suspected that Mr. Zombie was holding back his true strength. With a sense of anxiety, Mr. Zombie became the center of attention because Captain Chen's suspicions kept increasing. Captain Chen then challenged Mr. Zombie to show his true strength. If not, he would be considered insulting the other participants who had worked hard. Captain Chen also began to think that maybe Mr. Zombie was not human. Mr. Zombie, who was panicked, tried to convince Captain Chen that he was truly human. Although doubtful, Captain Chen finally believed Mr. Zombie's explanation and hoped he could show his true abilities. Captain Chen gave the condition that Mr. Zombie must defeat Chang-Su to pass this test. If not, Mr. Zombie would be punished. The pressure became even heavier for Mr. Zombie, who felt his life was on the line. He didn't want to become an experiment or just be used as an energy source for others. With strong determination, Mr. Zombie decided to show a little of his true power. In his heart, he knew that this was a life or death moment for him. Chang-Su and Dawn waited eagerly to see just how strong Mr. Zombie's true power was. Mr. Zombie prepared himself, his body leaning slightly backward, ready to throw with full power. Mr. Zombie's left eye began to turn red, a sign that he was getting a bit serious. All the hard training he had gone through was not in vain. With full concentration, his face showed a serious expression, ready to display a power that should not be underestimated. Mr. Zombie finally threw the javelin with tremendous force, causing the ground around the throwing point to shatter. The javelin flew extremely far, even passing through the atmosphere, hitting a space station, and eventually reaching the moon. The explosion of power caused everyone around to be thrown back. Meanwhile, Mr. Zombie remained standing tall, completely unaffected. Captain Chen, who was shocked to see Mr. Zombie's power, stood frozen, as if he couldn't believe what he had just witnessed. In outer space, the spear thrown by Mr. Zombie actually managed to pierce the moon, proving just how incredible Mr. Zombie's true power was. At that moment, Mr. Zombie only used a little of his strength. Just a little. After Mr. Zombie's spear-throwing test, everyone was still floating in the air, shocked and amazed by what had just happened. Mr. Zombie stood calmly, as if nothing extraordinary had happened, even though the ground around him was destroyed by the incredible power he had just unleashed. Everyone who witnessed the event was silent, unable to say a single word. Dawn immediately approached Mr. Zombie, his expression clearly showing his amazement at the power that had just been displayed. He was curious about where the spear thrown by Mr. Zombie had gone, but Mr. Zombie himself wasn't sure. He was just trying to give his best and show his true strength. Meanwhile, the fragment of the moon that was knocked loose by Mr. Zombie's throw is now orbiting as an asteroid in outer space. When the spear managed to pierce the moon, without realizing it, Mr. Zombie immediately fulfilled the requirements to pass. After receiving his certificate, he just wanted to go home right away. However, for Dawn, Mr. Zombie was someone truly worthy of becoming one of the captains at their academy. Dawn tried to convince Mr. Zombie that if he became a captain, he would have incredible authority, able to command troops, tanks, aircraft, and even long-range weapons. Even Violet, who was also a captain, had access to nuclear weapons and held the highest authority in a city with 30 million residents. Even though Dawn explained all these advantages, Mr. Zombie still wasn't interested. They then continued into the academy, where Dawn gave a tour around the campus. Dawn showed the Department of Biotechnology, the place where all the weapons were made, which could also be called the Department of Logistics. While looking around there, Mr. Zombie noticed a photo of a happy family displayed on the wall. The photo showed a man who looked similar to the mad scientist they had met earlier. Dawn introduced the man in the photo as Fei, the former captain of the Department of Biotechnology. Dawn said that before becoming a mad scientist, Fei was known as someone obsessed with strange research after his wife died. In his research, Fei used both humans and zombies. There were rumors circulating that Fei's goal was to fulfill the dream of his late wife. However, when Professor Fei lost his sanity, the academy fired him and issued an order to capture him dead or alive. As Dawn was telling the story, suddenly a scientist appeared and asked if they had finished the test. Dawn confirmed, while Mr. Zombie the scientist seemed familiar to Mr. Zombie. Mr. Zombie asked who the scientist was, and Dawn explained that he was Jamie's adopted son and currently serves as the captain of the biotechnology department. The scientist told them to come to him if they needed any equipment. Dawn enthusiastically asked for something that could help him hide his weapon, a Gatling gun that was bigger than his own body. The scientist had already guessed that Dawn might join the marksmanship department. It turned out that Dawn did join the academy to fulfill his desire to shoot. While the scientist was busy with his work, he saw Mr. Zombie's appearance when he was called. Unconsciously, he was startled and screamed in fear when he saw Mr. Zombie's face. However, Dawn immediately defended Mr. Zombie, explaining that Mr. Zombie was only wearing a zombie mask. Even though Dawn tried to defend him, the scientist, whose name was Kin, was not stupid and knew that Mr. Zombie was really a zombie. However, Dawn insisted that Mr. Zombie was human. Because he had witnessed the extraordinary powers that Mr. Zombie possessed, Kin finally agreed and pretended to believe that Mr. Zombie was a human. He continued his work and asked what Mr. Zombie needed. Although Mr. Zombie did not have any specific requests, he only wanted clothes that would not tear easily. Because every time he came home, he always ended up without any clothes. Kin found the request strange. However, he eventually accepted the task, even though it seemed difficult to fulfill. Meanwhile, in the swordsmanship department, Marshall looked ashamed of himself. In front of him, a woman appeared relaxed and carefree. Marshall's presence in the department was to report his defeat in battle. In his memory, as soon as he charged toward his opponent, his entire vision suddenly went dark. When he regained consciousness, Marshall found himself naked and hanging from a lamppost. The woman confidently stated that Mr. Zombie would not be able to defeat her. However, Marshall was convinced that Mr. Zombie was much stronger than her. The captain of the swordsmanship department stood up and approached Marshall, giving him a sharp look and intimidatingly asking about Mr. Zombie's name. The captain of the sword department, Zhang Lanqi, kept glaring at Marshall. However, in the end, he decided to let Marshall go. Zhang Lanqi had something in common with Violet. Even though Violet was in the sword department, and both of them were involved in the fierce rivalry between the sword department and the blade department that had been going on for generations at the academy. This rivalry was very intense, with each side using every means, including cunning tactics, to recruit members from the opposing side. Back to the present, Marshall hoped for the best for Mr. Zombie, realizing that Zhang Lanqi also had strength equal to Violet. At the same time, a teacher began a lesson in class about zombie habits. The teacher explained that besides eating human flesh, zombies are also known to like eggs. He reminded the students to take advantage of this weakness by targeting the zombie's head when setting traps. Mr. Zombie, who looked very focused, wrote down every word the teacher said with great attention. Dawn, who was watching him, realized how serious Mr. Zombie was about the lesson. He knew that Mr. Zombie had a personal reason for studying this, namely his desire to share the knowledge he gained with his family and the zombie community, even though he found that desire strange. Dawn chose not to express his thoughts. Suddenly, an announcement interrupted the lesson, asking everyone to gather in the gymnasium immediately. Dawn felt confused because they had just had a meeting earlier. As soon as the announcement ended, the students gathered in the gymnasium. Mr. Zombie, who was enjoying ice cream, looked relaxed, while Dawn was still confused by the sudden announcement. Violet arrived at the gymnasium and asked Mr. Zombie and Dawn to stay calm and avoid causing a commotion, because both of them were recommended by Violet. In his confusion, Dawn wondered if Mr. Zombie could eat under the mask he was wearing. Mr. Zombie awkwardly explained his situation. However, their conversation was interrupted when Zhang Lanqi arrived at the gymnasium. A boy standing next to Zhang Lanqi told him that Mr. Zombie was their target. He suggested testing Mr. Zombie's abilities, and Zhang Lanqi gave permission to do so. Not long after, a big man entered with his robot assistant. The man had a large scar on his face, and as soon as he entered the meeting room, everyone immediately bowed their heads. It seemed that this man was a highly respected figure at the academy, namely the chairman of the academy. Diawen immediately pulled Mr. Zombie's head down, making him realize that he didn't know who the man who had just entered was. It turned out, the chairman of the academy was the captain of the Department of Mechanical Lifeforms. All the students showed their respect to the chairman of the academy. while Mr. Zombie just looked confused. Among all the people who seemed respectful, only Zhang Lanqi didn't feel intimidated. When the chairman of the academy warned Zhang Lanqi not to cause trouble, Zhang Lanqi seemed indifferent and decided to just leave. Zhang Lanqi's subordinates were confused as to why he left the place just like that, even though their target was right in front of them. However, for Zhang Lanqi, the chairman of the academy was a more important figure than Mr. Zombie because he only respected those who were stronger. Meanwhile, the chairman of the academy praised Violet for her hard work, and Violet accepted the praise humbly, explaining that she was only doing her duty. Mr. Zombie began to sense something strange in the atmosphere among the department captains. While Dawn, who looked like a child, kept asking about the flavor of the ice cream she had, Mr. Zombie answered without hesitation that he liked egg flavor. After that, he asked Dawn about how strong the chairman of the academy was. Dawn explained that the chairman of the academy was closely related to Jemmy, and that the chairman was Jemmy's masterpiece, created through an evolved version of a human. The chairman of the academy was the only one who survived out of thousands of experiments conducted by Jemmy. After Jemmy was expelled from the academy, the chairman of the academy formed the Department of Mechanical Life Forms and the city under the department's control. The department has more than 50 million residents. During his 10 years as captain, not a single zombie appeared in the city he controlled. The city's security was very well maintained, because if there was even the slightest sign of a zombie, the chairman of the academy would immediately wipe out the entire area until it was clean. Mr. Zombie began to feel intimidated by the chairman of the academy, while Dawn, who was beside him, seemed fascinated by the explanation. The chairman of the academy then went up to the stage to give a briefing to the students. Even though they had just become human students, the academy needed them for a certain mission. The students began to wonder how they could help. The chairman of the academy ordered one of his assistant robots to display a projection to make the explanation easier to understand. The robot displayed an image of a man sitting. The chairman of the academy explained that the man in the projection was a spy who had been captured a few months ago, who almost caused a nuclear bomb to fall and kill several students from the extraordinary academy. Mr. Zombie felt angry when he realized that the man shown in the picture was the one who almost dropped a bomb on his city. The chairman of the academy continued his report, mentioning that the spy deserved to be sentenced to death. However, the academy realized that the spy might have important information about Jamie. In his mind, Mr. Zombie felt that Jamie was a much more important mission than chasing zombies. He realized that the zombie threat had long passed, and most missions now were caused more by internal divisions. Dawn agreed with Mr. Zombie's conclusion, although he frowned slightly as he stated that there are people who just want to watch the world burn. Back to the chairman of the academy, he told the students that he and the others had tried various methods to force the spy to talk, but all had failed. The chairman of the academy anxiously recounted the methods that had been used, such as the tiger chair, needles, castration, and even attempting to drown him. All those torture methods didn't work on the spy, and that forced the chairman of the academy to resort to trying to drown him. The mission faced by these new students was quite difficult, and that's when the chairman of the academy made a big offer. Whoever managed to make the spy talk would be promoted to vice captain. Students Jayan and Suneo looked excited to hear the offer, and they all raised their hands, willing to volunteer for the mission. A student was chosen first, and the chairman of the academy wished him success. With enthusiasm, the student ran toward the place where the spy was being held. 2 hours later, as the student failed to force the spy to talk, after 2 hours of futile effort, the new students began to feel hopeless. The methods used at first were quite ordinary, but over time, they started to become increasingly unusual. Some began to pray, others tried to annoy the spy in childish ways, and another tried to use his Buddhist abilities. Seeing all this, Violet felt embarrassed by the students' behavior. Meanwhile, Mr. Zombie and Dawn just sat back and enjoyed their ice cream. Dawn asked Mr. Zombie if he could make the spy talk. With full confidence, Mr. Zombie even showed off his skills to Dawn, claiming that he could make the spy sing. Dawn felt very excited watching Mr. Zombie getting ready to face the spy. She even got the academy chairman to choose Mr. Zombie as the next person to try. The academy chairman, with a calm demeanor, allowed it and pointed the way to where the spy was being held. In Dawn's mind, there was a deep sense of curiosity. She wondered why Mr. Zombie, whom she had always known as a rather humble figure, was now stepping forward. While Mr. Zombie walked toward the place, Lanky observed his every move with a sharp gaze. In his mind, Mr. Zombie had always regarded his subordinates as obedient and organized people. However, lately, he sensed instability within the group. He decided to take advantage of this opportunity, thinking that perhaps the spy had important information that could help him understand the increasingly uncontrollable situation. Upon arriving in front of the spy, Mr. Zombie found the man looking full of confidence, certain that no one could defeat him. They faced each other, and Mr. Zombie observed closely, trying to analyze every movement and expression of the spy. The spy arrogantly insulted the academy, mocking it for sending a zombie after him. It turned out, he was a devoted follower of Professor Jemmy and Faye, scientists known for their madness. Without hesitation, Mr. Zombie landed a light blow on the spy, leaving a minor wound on his hand. The spy burst out laughing, mocking the attack and considering it meaningless. However, Mr. Zombie remained calm and ordered the spy to stand up. Strangely, the spy quickly obeyed the order without any resistance. Violet, Dawn, and the head of the academy who witnessed the incident were astonished. Mr. Zombie, who had previously seemed ordinary, was now easily controlling the spy who was considered unbeatable by many people. It turned out that the small wound inflicted by Mr. Zombie contained a virus that slowly flowed through the spy's blood vessels until it finally reached his brain. With that virus, Mr. Zombie managed to control the spy's mind, forcing the man to provide the much-needed information. Mr. Zombie began to ask about his identity, and the spy quickly answered that his name was Xiao Kai. The reactions of the people who witnessed the incident were clear. They fell silent, shocked by Mr. Zombie's ability to control someone else's mind just like that. With full control over Kai, Mr. Zombie continued by asking about his relationship with Faye. Without hesitation, Kai revealed that he knew many things, including the big plan that Faye was preparing. He revealed that Faye had released a drug into the city that caused the zombies to go crazy. The drug allowed Faye to control the zombies to a certain extent, directing them to attack humans. In the process of the battle, Faye managed to gather data about the Extraordinary Academy. Mr. Zombie then asked about Faye's whereabouts, and Kai answered that Faye's secret base was about 500 meters beneath the city. At that moment, Lanky, who witnessed the incident, looked shocked and stunned, realizing that Mr. Zombie was not as weak as he thought. After getting the information he needed, Mr. Zombie ordered Kai to turn his body around. Before leaving, Mr. Zombie gave a terrifying warning, telling Kai that he had implanted a virus in his brain and could trigger it at any time. He could even make Kai commit suicide if necessary, all while under Mr. Zombie's control. Kai could only stare blankly, replying in a flat voice that he understood. Underground, 500 meters beneath the city, Faye and his team were on high alert after learning that Kai had leaked their important information. The Extraordinary Academy now knew their hiding place, and Faye began planning their next move. Even so, there was a sense of relief that enveloped him, because he realized that the Academy had already started moving toward his hiding place. Faye's assistant, unconcerned, sensed the threat from the Academy drawing closer. However, Faye remained calm. His experiment was almost complete, and he felt that the Academy's arrival was actually the perfect opportunity to witness the birth of a perfect life form, a historic moment he had long awaited. Meanwhile, the atmosphere at the Academy grew tense after Mr. Zombie left the room. His dominating presence made many people feel intimidated, especially after they had just witnessed his mind control abilities. Violet felt anxious, while Lanky realized how powerful the person he had always considered ordinary really was. However, among them, there was one person who actually applauded, and that was the head of the academy. He felt proud to see a new student with such extraordinary hidden talent. After witnessing Mr. Zombie's abilities, the head of the academy kept his promise to make him the new vice captain. Even so, for Mr. Zombie, his main focus remained on Faye. Although the head of the academy was confident that Faye wouldn't be able to escape, Lanky started to feel bored. Meanwhile, the head of the academy guided Mr. Zombie through the registration process. However, Lanky's subordinates felt something was strange about the registration for the vice captain position. An uneasy feeling began to grow within Lanky, who then decided to follow the head of the academy and Mr. Zombie. They walked toward the abandoned industrial area. The atmosphere there seemed quiet and neglected. However, Mr. Zombie sensed that something was unusual. Even so, he remembered that the registration process had to be completed soon, before he continued his search for Faye. The head of the academy, who had sharp instincts, began to grow suspicious. He immediately asked when Mr. Zombie started learning to speak human language, as if he had detected that Mr. Zombie was a zombie. Mr. Zombie pretended not to understand, trying to hide his true identity. Without warning, the head of the academy drew his weapon and fired a shot aimed directly at Mr. Zombie's head. The shot was so powerful that it almost hit Lanky and his men who were standing behind. Lanky's men immediately became worried about their safety. However, Lanky assured them that they were safe. Lanky immediately recognized the head of the academy's weapon, which had an extraordinary ability to destroy all forms of matter. The head of the academy firmly stated that even though Mr. Zombie could deceive others, he would not be fooled. He knew for sure that Mr. Zombie was a zombie, and called the academy a foolish place for allowing someone like Mr. Zombie to enter it. Mr. Zombie appeared to be standing without a head, and the head of the academy felt confident that he had managed to overcome the threat, considering that a zombie's main weakness is its head. The head of the academy apologized for having to eliminate Mr. Zombie, because he couldn't allow a zombie to roam freely. However, at that very moment Mr. Zombie's body moved with incredible speed. Without a head, Mr. Zombie's hands quickly grabbed the head of the academy, pushing him with great force and slamming him into the building wall, resulting in a loud crash that left the head of the academy in pain. In an instant, the head of the academy's assistant robots appeared to detect the danger threatening their leader. The robots immediately fired lasers at Mr. Zombie, causing a huge explosion in the abandoned area. However, Mr. Zombie grabbed the robots and threw them far away. The intelligent robots were shattered to pieces, thrown helplessly. The head of the academy, who was now keeping his distance, began to feel anxious seeing that Mr. Zombie seemed unaffected even after being attacked relentlessly. He wondered how Mr. Zombie could still move so quickly and powerfully even without a head. On the other hand, Mr. Zombie had destroyed all the robots that attacked him, and now he was preparing for the next battle. He felt unstoppable even in his unusual condition. Mr. Zombie, appearing headless, was still holding one of the destroyed robot assistants' heads. Lanky and his subordinates were stunned. They were shocked to see how Mr. Zombie turned the situation around and started fighting back with incredible strength. Relentlessly, Mr. Zombie launched a barrage of attacks at the head of the academy. However, the head of the academy dodged every incoming attack with incredible speed. Even so, Mr. Zombie kept pressing the attack, refusing to give up. Meanwhile, the head of the academy, with extraordinary agility, kept dodging, maintaining distance, and trying to withstand those attacks. A few moments passed, until finally the head of the academy drew his weapon, ready to launch a counter-attack. However, once again, Mr. Zombie dodged the attack with incredible speed. The head of the academy began to feel deep frustration, realizing that Mr. Zombie was not an opponent who could be easily defeated. The fight paused for a moment, and at that time, the spectators were astonished to witness a miracle. Mr. Zombie's head began to grow back. Even so, Mr. Zombie suddenly seemed intent on hurting the head of the academy. He tried to speak. However, the head of the academy, who never underestimated his enemies, remained alert. He knew very well that Mr. Zombie had the ability to control people's minds, and because of that, he remained extremely vigilant. The fight continued without pause. The academy chief called one of his robot protectors, Model 1. In an instant, fragments from the surrounding area flew toward the academy chief's body and attached themselves perfectly, transforming him into a figure that looked even more like a robot. Mr. Zombie was surprised to see the transformation. Meanwhile, Lunky and his subordinates were increasingly fascinated by the academy chief's incredible abilities. Now, the academy chief looked like a mechanical being, moving and acting with extraordinary power just like a robot. He launched an attack with full force, striking Mr. Zombie with his knee. Mr. Zombie was thrown back, but the academy chief was already prepared to continue his assault. As soon as Mr. Zombie was about to fall, the academy chief delivered a powerful punch straight to Mr. Zombie's stomach, sending his body flying even farther. Lunky and his subordinates were silent, unable to take their eyes off the increasingly intense fight. However, the academy chief didn't stop there. He kept launching relentless attacks, chasing after Mr. Zombie, who now looked more and more helpless. Every punch Mr. Zombie took made him increasingly unsteady, but he still didn't fight back. Finally, the Academy Chief decided to deliver the final blow. With one very powerful attack, he slammed Mr. Zombie into the ground. Mr. Zombie's body was thrown down, while the Academy Chief landed firmly on his feet. He stared firmly and declared that all zombies must be exterminated. To make sure of that, he launched a massive laser blast from his chest. Lunky was shocked and felt terrified as he watched the bright laser beam shine, illuminating the dark corridor, aiming straight at Mr. Zombie. The Academy Chief took a deep breath for a moment, feeling confident that his attack had ended the battle. However, another surprise occurred. Mr. Zombie appeared again, walking calmly as if completely unaffected by the attack he had just received. The Academy Chief felt foolish seeing Mr. Zombie still alive and walking toward him. Mr. Zombie stood tall, then let out a loud scream that shook his surroundings. Lunky and his subordinates were shocked. Their bodies trembled from the vibrations of that sound. Even the Academy Chief, who was wearing advanced combat body armor, felt the impact of Mr. Zombie's scream. Mr. Zombie was now truly serious. His hair began to grow back, showing even greater power. Lunky and his subordinates grew even more terrified witnessing the change. Mr. Zombie stepped forward, approaching the Academy Chief, who began to feel a fear he had never experienced before. Mr. Zombie, who seemed to have no intention of playing around anymore, kept getting closer, making the atmosphere around him even more tense. The sky above began to swirl, forming a spiral that kept growing larger. A strange phenomenon that kept expanding its reach until it reached the size of a city. Mr. Zombie remained standing firmly on the ground, seemingly unfazed by what was happening. The spiral spun at a terrifying speed, drawing the attention of many people around him. Down was startled, his eyes wide open at the sight, while Lunky, who had previously appeared calm, now began to panic. The townspeople who witnessed this event felt the same tension. They grew increasingly worried as the sky spun and shook their sense of peace. The head of the Academy, who watched anxiously, also fell silent. His face showed deepening worry, feeling intimidated by the increasingly uncontrollable situation. However, even though the atmosphere grew more tense, Mr. Zombie faced the head of the Academy with a terrifying look, as if challenging the head of the Academy to choose his own way of dying. Lunky and his subordinates, who witnessed Mr. Zombie's change in attitude, felt an incredible tension. They realized that Mr. Zombie's personality had changed drastically, creating a deep sense of fear in Lunky. Feeling unsafe, they immediately decided to leave the place, worried about getting caught up in the escalating battle. Meanwhile, the Academy chairman, who had never felt threatened by any creature in his entire life, remained stubborn. He showed no fear toward Mr. Zombie, and kept taunting him, even challenging him to attack. Lunky and his subordinates ran away, trying to find a safer place. They hoped to get away from the duel between Mr. Zombie and the Academy chairman. But not long after, they realized that they had entered a danger zone, where the battle could destroy the city they lived in. The Academy chairman, whose body was badly injured and had lost several limbs after being slammed into the ground, called his assistant robots. Models 2, 3, and 4. The attacks from the robots created a huge explosion that shook the surroundings. Lunky, who was not far from the Academy chairman, was stunned by the scene. At that moment, the Academy chairman pleaded for help from Lunky, realizing how dangerous Mr. Zombie was. However, the frightened Lunky thought the Academy chairman was crazy for provoking Mr. Zombie from the start. Panicking, Lunky suggested that they all split up and run away immediately. On the other hand, Mr. Zombie, who was still on the ground, was preparing to launch his next attack. Lunky quickly realized that Mr. Zombie would not just let them escape. Mr. Zombie struck the ground with incredible force, causing an earthquake that shook the entire area. Lunky was shocked when the ground beneath him started moving toward him. The asphalt of the road moved closer to his face, as if gravity had changed. He started to feel afraid, imagining just how unbelievable Mr. Zombie's power was. Meanwhile, Mr. Zombie kept gripping the ground, lifting it with unimaginable strength, until half the city began to rise, as if it was about to fold into the earth. The townspeople started to panic, terrified by the worsening situation. Even Dawn, who witnessed the event, felt both fascinated and horrified seeing how the new city began to float. On the other hand, the Academy chairman fell from the rising ground and hit his head hard. Mr. Zombie quickly chased after him, grabbed his head, and dragged him onto the fractured part of the city. After that, Mr. Zombie smiled cynically, standing upright, Mr. Zombie gripped the Academy chairman's hair, who was now powerless, and asked if the Academy chairman finally knew what it felt like to be threatened. Mr. Zombie held the Academy chairman's body, which was now without limbs. His face was filled with a cruel expression. Even though he realized that he couldn't control the mind of a robot, the Academy chairman was not a completely mechanical being. With tremendous strength, Mr. Zombie gripped the Academy chairman's head even tighter, using the same technique he had used on the previous spy. The virus seeped into the Academy chairman's brain, and slowly, the Academy chairman's memories began to open up in Mr. Zombie's mind. The first memory that appeared was an image of two adults and a vague silhouette. Then the memory shifted to the Academy chairman's childhood, witnessing both of his parents die in front of him. Fragments of those memories continued the story of the Academy chairman's life, until it shifted to the moment when a doctor performed body modifications on the Academy chairman. After briefly glimpsing that memory, Mr. Zombie decided to let the Academy chairman live. He felt that the Academy chairman would suffer longer if left alive in such a condition. Feeling bored and no longer interested, Mr. Zombie threw the Academy chairman's body to the edge of the cliff. Fortunately, Lunky managed to catch him just in time. When Lunky looked up, Mr. Zombie had disappeared without a trace. At night, Mr. Zombie returned to his normal state. He packed his belongings, feeling ashamed for losing control of his emotions. Mr. Zombie was even afraid of himself. He tried to convince himself that he was still the friendly and kind Mr. Zombie, even though shame and regret were eating away at him. As Mr. Zombie hurried out the door, Violet stopped him. Mr. Zombie had no choice but to keep Violet quiet. He apologized for what he was about to do. However, he stopped in his tracks when Violet showed him a document. Violet presented a document stating that Mr. Zombie was now officially the vice captain of the Extraordinary Academy. Mr. Zombie felt confused. He didn't understand why there was no violent reaction to his previous anger. He became even more confused when he saw the Academy chairman approve him to become vice captain. Mr. Zombie asked Captain Violet if the Academy chairman had ever mentioned anything about him. And Violet answered that the Academy chairman considered him a good person. Violet didn't show any violent reaction, and even congratulated Mr. Zombie on his achievement. Meanwhile, the Academy chairman, whose body parts had been fully restored, was lying in bed with Lunky sitting nearby. Lunky felt that the Academy chairman's decision to let Mr. Zombie stay at the Academy, even after knowing Mr. Zombie's true nature, was a huge mistake. However, the Academy chairman saw it from a different perspective, considering the potential and benefits they could gain if Mr. Zombie was on their side. Lunky was more worried that Mr. Zombie might lose control again and go on a rampage. However, the Academy chairman was still willing to take the risk. He then shifted the conversation, asking about the preparations that needed to be made. His mind was still focused on Professor Jamie and Faye. He promised himself to erase all traces of Professor Jamie and Faye forever, hiding those names deep at the bottom of the sea. Outside, in a place far from the city, the followers of Mr. Zombie heard the news that their leader was now being held in the City of Humans. Farmind, a loyal high-ranking member, asked his companions what they could do to save Mr. Zombie. The zombie followers of Mr. Zombie looked upset and angry, calling to kill all humans to save their zombie king. Blackie, who was wiser, considered Farman's actions foolish because he and Goo already understood very well how extraordinary Mr. Zombie's power was. On the other hand, on an aircraft carrier sailing on the open sea, the head of the Academy, who had recovered, was seen in the cabin together with Captain Violet. The head of the Academy announced to everyone to get ready, because their chance to capture Professor Faye and Jamie had come. On the other hand, somewhere in the city, Mr. Zombie and Dawn were taking a walk. Dawn was fascinated to see how the long-abandoned place was still well-maintained. Suddenly, a group of soldiers blocked their way. Mr. Zombie felt confused, but the soldiers actually greeted him respectfully, welcoming the zombie to the new city that was now under his rule. They informed him that from that moment on, they would follow Mr. Zombie's orders. Mr. Zombie was still surprised at how quickly everything happened. He hadn't even had the chance to ask for recognition for his achievements. All the soldiers followed Mr. Zombie, standing formally in the city, welcoming him as the new vice captain. Mr. Zombie wondered if the soldiers would follow his orders. Then, Mr. Zombie asked if the soldier was willing to commit suicide. Without hesitation, the soldier took out a grenade and activated it. Mr. Zombie tried to stop him, saying it was just a joke. However, the grenade in the soldier's hand had already exploded. Mr. Zombie and Dawn looked at each other, realizing that the soldier was just a side character, so his loss wasn't too significant. Above them, it seemed like a man was sitting on the cannon of a tank. He said that Mr. Zombie was a vice chairman, but looked weak. Mr. Zombie and Dawn looked confused when they heard this. The man was not alone. He and his partner jumped down. They stood confidently in front of Mr. Zombie, wearing special silver combat suits. One of them said that they were sent from the Stainless Steel Academy to help the Extraordinary Academy complete its mission. Dawn was surprised. She realized that the two people were Captain Bang and Vice Captain Chu, who were famous from the Steel Academy. Elsewhere, the head of the Steel Academy, Captain Gang, felt confused as to why his superiors sent him to this place to help. He realized that helping was something they usually did. Even so, he didn't understand why a beginner like Vice Chairman Zombie was placed in such a strategic location. Lanky argued that as an outsider, Chairman Gang had no right to question their superior's decision, and he just needed to do his job. Not long after, in the ship's control center, Chairman Gang asked the Academy Chairman why he placed a beginner in such an important location. The Academy Chairman answered casually, saying that Vice Chairman Zombie was very strong, even stronger than Chairman Gang. Chairman Gang didn't believe it, even reminding that he was stronger than the Academy Chairman. Chairman Gang said that he had sent his men to Vice Captain Zombie's place to help, so there was nothing to worry about. Somewhere else, Professor Jemmy smiled slyly, telling Faye that the troops from the Academy Association had surrounded the entire city. Faye asked Jemmy to release the zombies that had been prepared. Without hesitation, Jemmy pressed the red button nearby. A horde of zombies was released from their cages, immediately running out aggressively. However, in the control room of his headquarters, Jemmy realized there was another zombie mixed in with his group of zombies. It was Farman, one of the high-ranking members of the Mr. Zombie group. The newly released zombies immediately attacked. However, they were easily defeated by the troops and the two mutants from Stainless Steel Academy, who stated that this mission was too easy for them. Mr. Zombie, who checked the bodies of the fallen zombies, realized that the horde of zombies attacking were not members of his group. Not long after, Captain Bang approached Mr. Zombie and told him that his presence was not needed in this area. Arrogantly, he told Mr. Zombie to go home, saying that he was too weak and should just play with children's toys. However, their argument was interrupted when a loud scream was heard. All their attention shifted to a powerful zombie who appeared at the scene. Mr. Zombie wondered what Farman was doing there. On the other hand, Jemmy laughed happily seeing Farman's abilities now successfully under control. Confidently, Jemmy hoped that a good show would soon begin. Two hours earlier, Farman looked upset, asking the zombie in front of him where the other zombies who agreed to fight humans and free their zombie king had gone. The zombie panicked and handed a gallon of gasoline to Farman, just as he asked, and immediately left. He said that he didn't dare to go against Mr. Zombie's order not to fight humans. That made Farman even more upset. He shouted at the fleeing zombie, calling them cowards, and said that it didn't matter to go against Mr. Zombie's orders as long as they didn't get caught. Farman grumbled, convincing himself that he didn't need the other zombies and could defeat all the humans by himself. Suddenly, Farman sniffed a strange smell, which turned out to be a special liquid used by Jemmy to control the zombies. Back to the present time, Mr. Zombie and the others watched as Farman started acting strangely. Mr. Zombie was still confused about why Farman was there, while Dawn became even more clueless about what was happening. Suddenly, Farman drank gasoline from the gallon in his hand, and the liquid dripped down, soaking his body, making Dawn shocked to see the zombie drinking gasoline. Farman then started up the chainsaw in his hand, screaming so loudly that it shattered the windows of the buildings around him. Mr. Zombie stood tall, unaffected by Farman's loud scream that echoed around them. Meanwhile, Dawn was thrown far away as if blown by the wind. On the other hand, Captain Bang was disturbed by the loud noise. After a while, the screaming subsided, and Dawn began to wonder what was really happening. Farman, who looked increasingly aggressive, laughed loudly, like a psychopathic zombie, enjoying a game. Captain Bang, who was watching Mr. Zombie and Don running away, sneered at them as trash, thinking they chose to run away as soon as they met a stronger enemy. His comrade in front of Bang asked for permission to move forward and take Bang's place to face the zombie in front of them. Bang agreed, and his comrade confidently walked toward Farman. Bang, still deep in thought, thanked his comrade for sparing him from having to deal with a more complicated problem. However, while Bang was still muttering to himself, the shadow of his comrade being thrown suddenly flashed past him. His comrade was thrown far away. His body hit the steel tank behind them, making Bang startled and immediately turn around. When he saw his unconscious comrade, a fast shadow approached him. In an instant, Farman was already in front of Bang, surprising him with the incredible speed of that zombie. Meanwhile, Mr. Zombie, Dawn, and the remaining troops were hiding on the rooftop, observing from a distance. Below, Bang had now become a punching bag for Farman, who kept beating him mercilessly. Jamie, who was watching the fight through the monitor, looked excited, convinced that Farman was very strong. Farman spun Captain Bang's body like a spinning top, and with great force, he threw him to the ground. Without mercy, Farman kicked Bang, sending his body flying and crashing into his unconscious comrade, who was slumped beside the steel tank. Farman stepped on Captain Bang's chest, then started the chainsaw in his hand. Bang looked panicked, trying to block the attack with the banana attached to his armored suit. On top of the building, Mr. Zombie and his group watched through binoculars, while Dawn looked restless, worried that Captain Bang wouldn't last much longer. Captain Bang, who was still fighting with all his might, finally cried hysterically, begging Farman not to kill him. Mr. Zombie and Dawn, who witnessed the scene, looked awkward, not knowing how to respond. Jamie laughed in satisfaction seeing Captain Bang cry, feeling that victory was getting closer. On top of the building, one of the soldiers asked Mr. Zombie what they should do next, while Dawn suggested not to send regular soldiers, because they would only be easy targets if they fought that zombie. Mr. Zombie was still wondering in his heart why Farman didn't recognize him. He then asked Dawn to wake Farman up and teach Farman a lesson. Dawn looked panicked and shocked, shouting at Mr. Zombie, reminding him that even Captain Bang could be easily defeated by Farman. She wondered if Mr. Zombie was going to send her to be zombie food. Calmly, Mr. Zombie asked Dawn to extend her hand. Suddenly he bit Dawn's hand, who was shocked and screamed hysterically in pain. Dawn fell down and sat, checking the bite mark from Mr. Zombie on her hand. She accused Mr. Zombie of doing something to control her mind. Mr. Zombie calmly tried to calm her down, while nervously asking Dawn not to hit Farman too hard. Down below, Captain Bang was still struggling with all his might, continuing to cry hysterically and begging Farman not to kill him. Farman just laughed in satisfaction, enjoying Bang's suffering. Suddenly, a thrown stone stopped Farman's attack, accompanied by a shout calling him a rat with a saw. Farman, annoyed, turned toward the source of the voice. In the distance, someone began to approach while laughing menacingly, dragging a large automatic machine gun. Dawn, who had now turned into a zombie, approached Farman with an evil smile, challenging Farman to play with her. The bite given by Mr. Zombie changed everything inside Dawn's body. The cells in her body began to rebel, releasing genetic nucleotides that spread throughout her blood, replacing her body's cells bit by bit. This silent process soon brought about a very real change. Now, with a sharp gaze, Dawn stood with full confidence. She gripped her large weapon tightly, while her eyes, which used to be bright, had now turned pitch black, a sign that she was no longer an ordinary human, but something more than that. Captain Bang and Farman, who witnessed the transformation, looked confused and amazed. In his shock, Farman began to mock, thinking that Dawn was just an empty threat. However, Dawn just smiled with a mocking grin, as if challenging Farman to experience what she had just gained. Without hesitation, she lifted the large machine gun in her hand and, with a swift motion, unleashed a hail of bullets aimed at Farman, bombarding the surroundings as explosions shook the area. However, Farman, with his agility, managed to dodge every bullet that whizzed by. Meanwhile, Captain Bang fell. His body froze in fear on the ground. The comrade who came to his senses quickly pulled him away from the increasingly intense battlefield. The shooting stopped for a moment, but moments later, Dawn was already on top of Farman's body. In one deadly move, he activated 2 grenades and shoved them into Farmin's mouth before he could dodge. A huge explosion shook Farmin's body, but it had absolutely no effect on the zombie's body. Farmin just laughed, as if he thought the attack was just a game. Don wasn't afraid. With the shotgun he had just pulled out, he fired another barrage of shots. The bullets bombarded Farmin's face with deadly precision. On the rooftop, Mr. Zombie, who was watching from a distance, explained that he had only slightly modified Don's genetics. Why, he knew this was just the beginning. Don, with the new power he possessed, could still become much stronger. Back to the battle. Farmin felt pain, but he was not afraid. In fact, he became even more eager to fight. Meanwhile, Don, who felt uncontrollable satisfaction, kept laughing, enjoying every second of the fight. On the other hand, Captain Bang and his partner, who were scared and hugging each other, could only watch in horror. With a swift movement, Farmin charged toward Don. With unexpected strength, Don stepped forward, stomping on the chainsaw that Farmin was holding with a single kick. Don then landed a powerful kick on Farmin. Farmin was thrown far away, rolling over and over before finally stopping in a strange position. However, not long after, Farmin got back up and quickly moved toward Don. Captain Bang and his partner, who witnessed this incident, felt confused. Why was Don, who previously seemed weak, now so strong? They began to realize that there was something much bigger than what they were seeing. Don pulled out another weapon, a bazooka. Mr. Zombie, who was still watching from a distance, looked surprised. The 2 zombies seemed more excited than before, fighting in a more brutal and unpredictable way. Don fired his bazooka with full force. However, Farmin, with unexpected speed, managed to cut the bazooka rocket in half with a chainsaw, splitting it into 2 parts. That quick attack also struck Don's body, injuring part of him. Seeing that, Captain Bang and his partner panicked. They thought that Don had finally lost. Farmin, feeling victory at his fingertips, laughed confidently, saying that as a zombie, nothing could defeat him. He thought Don had run out of strength. However, without him realizing it, Mr. Zombie carefully moved his hand again. Suddenly, Don's wounded body began to heal and come back together quickly. Farmin, witnessing the event, looked shocked. Not knowing what had just happened, Don, with a sly smile returning to his face, challenged Farmin, explaining that he was also a zombie, no different from himself. His body, now twisted in a strange way, further emphasized that he was no longer just a human. Captain Bang and his companion, seeing the transformation, could only scream hysterically, stunned by what they witnessed. Don and Farmin faced each other. Both radiated a dangerous aura that made anyone witnessing this battle feel tense. The tension increased even more when Don, with a terrifying smile, stepped forward. Captain Bang and his companion, who were at a distance, were shocked to see it and couldn't hide their horror. They immediately tried to get away, running in panic while shouting for help, as if hoping someone would come to save them. Farmin, who at first lacked confidence, now began to feel confused. He paused for a moment, wondering to himself who was actually more dangerous between the 2 of them. Was it himself, who was a zombie, or Don, who had now transformed into a far more terrifying creature? Mr. Zombie, who was still watching with binoculars in hand, could only mutter to himself as he observed the changes in Don. After the genetic mutation, Don was now much stronger, even though his body also suffered severe damage. Mr. Zombie's expression turned serious. He realized that Farmin had not obeyed his order to stay at home. And now, he had to face the consequences. Don, who was now even wilder and more uncontrollable, laughed menacingly. In an instant, he was already standing in front of Farmin. He attacked with a powerful punch that sent Farmin's body flying. Without giving him a chance to fight back, Don struck Farmin's head again with his large machine gun. Farmin's body was slammed hard, falling helplessly to the ground. Don didn't give Farmin any time to recover. He kept savagely beating Farmin as he lay on the ground. Farmin, who was already helpless, finally raised his hand, begging Don to stop. However, Don just grinned. The large machine gun was still tightly in his hands, ready to continue his attack. Farmin, now starting to get scared, screamed and begged Don to stop. He promised he would leave and go straight home, hoping to escape further attacks. Seeing that scene, Mr. Zombie and the soldiers around him could only remain silent. not knowing what to say. Jamie, who was watching on the surveillance monitor, was also speechless. Fireman, who once looked strong, now just looked like helpless prey. However, unexpectedly, he launched a surprise attack that landed squarely on Dawn's face. That surprise changed the direction of the fight. Jamie, who saw the attack, became excited again. Mr. Zombie, who at first didn't believe in Fireman's abilities, could now only cover his face with his hands, feeling shocked and confused by what had just happened. Jamie, who was getting more and more excited, urged Fireman to continue his attack, telling him to finish this battle quickly. However, on the monitor screen, it could be seen that Dawn was already cornered, along with Captain Bang and his partner, who were still hugging each other in fear. Meanwhile, Fireman, who at first seemed cornered, was now laughing confidently, as if celebrating the victory he had achieved. Suddenly, Jamie looked anxiously at his monitor screen, noticing Mr. Zombie coming down from the rooftop. Mr. Zombie, who was now standing tall in front of Fireman, exerted tremendous pressure on everyone around him. Jamie, who witnessed that, felt a bit uneasy, but remained optimistic. He knew Fireman had great strength, and he told Fireman to step forward and challenge Mr. Zombie. However, Fireman, who was initially confident, now appeared to be trembling with fear. His body couldn't move, and his mouth seemed locked shut. He couldn't say anything. He could only feel the immense pressure from Mr. Zombie's presence in front of him. Mr. Zombie approached with slow steps, staring at Fireman with a serious expression. "Little Fireman, do you still remember who I am?" he asked in a menacing tone. Meanwhile, Fireman recalled the first time he met Mr. Zombie. At that time, he was the leader of the zombie gang who never imagined he would become a subordinate. When one of his men reported that there was a gangster who wanted to make him a subordinate, Fireman asked angrily, "Who is that bold person?" Not long after, Mr. Zombie appeared in front of him, revealing his identity. Fireman, who at that time felt stronger and superior, did not see Mr. Zombie as a threat. He even insulted Mr. Zombie, considering him a weak creature unfit to be a leader. However, now, everything has changed. Mr. Zombie stands in front of him, looking at him with eyes full of power, and Fireman, who now can't move, feels an incredible fear. Captain Bang and his companion, who witnessed this scene, could only remain silent, confused by what was happening. In his fear, Fireman even wet his pants, a sign of fear that could not be hidden. Fireman stood frozen with his body trembling. His eyes glanced down at his pants, now wet from his fear. On the other hand, Professor Jamie tried to force Fireman to attack Mr. Zombie. However, there was no response. Mr. Zombie just stood still, staring at Fireman coldly, as if deliberately creating a suffocating pressure. In his fear, Fireman's past memories came back to haunt him. At that time, Mr. Zombie's hand gripped his mouth with incredible strength, making him unable to speak. Mr. Zombie's red eyes stared sharply, full of hatred and power. An evil smile appeared on his face, radiating a deep aura of terror. Fireman, who was still arrogant at that time, could only feel the horror that made his eyes almost pop out of their sockets. That memory continues to haunt Fireman to this day. He remembered how Mr. Zombie showed his cruelty by cutting his body into small pieces. Those body parts were hung separately on trees and left to dry for hundreds of years. A zombie may be immortal, but the pain and humiliation left wounds that would never heal. In the present, Jamie keeps trying to force his control over Fireman through the advanced equipment he operates. However, with a loud scream, Fireman finally refused Jamie's orders, causing the equipment in the control room to explode. Unexpectedly, Fireman escaped at incredible speed, leaving the battlefield. Everyone who witnessed it was stunned. Dawn, Captain Bang, and his partner could only stare in disbelief as Fireman disappeared in an instant. Even Mr. Zombie, caught off guard, did not expect Fireman's sudden action. From the control room, Jamie shouted angrily, trying to understand how Fireman could escape his control. In the midst of the chaos, Faye appeared calmly, placing his hand on Jamie's shoulder. His demeanor was cold but firm. Jamie looked at Faye in confusion, but before he could say anything, Faye signaled to give up on this plan. Above the city, a helicopter flew low, approaching the intended location. Inside, Lanky looked anxious, watching below through the window. He asked Kai, whose face was still bruised, making sure they were really at the right place. Kai nodded confidently, explaining the details of the location below them. A 6-story building covering an area of more than 11,000 square meters. Lanky was surprised to hear that, feeling frustrated by the vast area they had to explore. However, before Lanky could come up with a plan, Captain Gang was already on the move. With a sword in his hand, he jumped out of the helicopter without warning. Energy flowed from his body, channeling into his sword, which spun like a giant drill. With incredible speed, Captain Gang shot toward the ground, striking it with tremendous force. A loud explosion echoed, destroying floor after floor until it broke through to the secret underground base. Lanky looked at the reckless action with annoyance. Musclehead, he grumbled while turning his face away. He directed his anger at the Academy Chief, demanding an explanation for that reckless decision. However, the Academy Chief remained calm, simply saying that in the face of absolute power, all tricks become meaningless. Without saying much, he jumped out of the helicopter, following Captain Gang, leaving the defensive line to Lanky and the other crew members. Below, dust from the explosion still filled the air, while Captain Gang stood casually in the middle of the huge crater he had just created. Even though the attack looked perfect, the hidden threats in the underground base had not been fully revealed. The special forces moved like shadows, sneaking through the dark corridors of the underground base. Each floor was carefully inspected, but the results were nil. There were no traces indicating suspicious activity or the presence of the target. After sweeping the entire area, they reported the results to their superiors. On the ground floor, Captain Gang stood with his hand resting on his sword. His expression showed deep frustration. There was no way they had come up empty. However, the head of the academy standing beside him remained calm. Confidence radiated from his eyes. All access in and out of the city had been tightly sealed. It was impossible for anyone to escape, not even a mosquito. Elsewhere, outside the underground headquarters, Captain Lanky looked uneasy. He looked at his colleagues with frustration, feeling dissatisfied with his role of just waiting outside. Meanwhile, on the roof of a building, Faye and Jamie had quickly moved to a new position. Faye, with a confident look on her face, gave brief instructions. Jamie, with swift hands, activated a series of commands. Their operation switched to Plan A. Inside the underground headquarters, Captain Gang found a giant tube prominently displayed with a large label that read Zombie King. Right in front of it, there was a sheet of paper full of provocative writing, as if challenging the courage of anyone who read it. However, before Captain Lanky could take further action, the head of the academy stopped him. Caution became their priority. Their task was to capture someone, not to create a new threat. Elsewhere, Jamie, who was monitoring the situation from afar, looked anxious. Faye, who was beside him, remained calm, and without rushing, she decided to switch to Plan B. With a single press of a button in her hand, Faye activated something hidden inside the underground base. Suddenly, a rumbling sound was heard, and a huge explosion occurred near Captain Gang's location. The soldiers scattered, trying to save themselves from the sudden destruction. However, Captain Gang remained standing tall in the midst of the chaos. He even brushed the dust off his armor casually. Meanwhile, on the rooftop, Jamie reported the success of Plan B to Faye. Faye laughed in satisfaction, seeing that her actions were going according to plan. The smoke from the explosion at the underground headquarters slowly faded, revealing what was hidden behind the giant tube. From behind the mist, a small figure appeared. A toddler zombie, biting on a pacifier in its mouth, stood with its hands on its hips in a cocky manner. Captain Gang and the Academy Chief were shocked by this strange sight. The Academy Chief immediately warned Captain Gang to be careful. Dangers that seem harmless are often the deadliest. Captain Gang didn't waste any time. With a swift sword attack, he tried to finish off the little zombie. However, the zombie moved with incredible agility, dodging the attack and jumping onto Captain Gang's head. The Academy Chief immediately ordered his men to retreat, realizing that this threat was far more dangerous than it appeared. Captain Gang, with burning rage, launched another attack. This time, his sword strike hit the target. The little zombie's body was split in two. However, instead of being destroyed, each half of the body turned into a new zombie. Now, in front of them stood two toddler zombies, each still with a pacifier in its mouth. Captain Gang was stunned, unable to believe what had just happened. The head of the academy, who was usually calm, seemed to be getting uneasy. This threat was developing beyond expectations. and now, in front of them stood a danger that seemed increasingly difficult to stop. After merging back together, the zombie remained standing still in the middle of the room, showing no signs of attacking. On the other hand, Jemmy devised a strategy to escape. He ordered his men to release thousands of zombies so that the attention of the troops surrounding them would be diverted. Not long after, the horde of zombies charged out of one of the buildings, running wildly toward the city with surprising aggressions. In the city, Captain Lunky, who was in charge of guarding the area, immediately noticed the presence of the zombie horde. While his men panicked, Lunky remained calm. He stepped back for a moment, pulled out the hairpin holding his hair, and let it fall loose. With a relaxed attitude, Lunky walked toward the approaching crowd of zombies. Lunky's sword gleamed as he drew it. Standing tall in the middle of the road, he blocked thousands of zombies coming to attack him. In an instant, he charged forward, attacking one of the zombies with a kick that stopped it in its tracks. He kept launching attack after attack, sending the zombies flying through the air like leaves swept by a strong wind. Lunky jumped onto a tree trunk, causing it to bend under the force of his landing. From there, Lunky shot back, attacking the zombies in the air with deadly swings of his sword. After it was all over, he planted his sword in the ground. Then Lunky gently landed on top of his sword. Severed zombie body parts rained down everywhere. Some of the smaller pieces even landed on his crew's food plates. Lunky stood gracefully, crossing his arms with a confident look on his face. Meanwhile, in another location, Jemmy looked frustrated. He cursed Lunky's ability to take down all the zombies he had released. In the midst of the chaos, some zombies that hadn't been eliminated ran around aimlessly, creating further disorder. In the distance, two SSS zombies, Goo and Blackie, observed the situation. They wore masks to protect themselves from Jemmy's zombie virus, which could potentially make them lose control over their bodies. Calmly, Blackie approached one of the wild zombies while showing a poster of Farman's face. However, the interaction yielded no results. Back at the underground base, the small zombie that had been standing began to move, waving both of its hands. In front of it, the Academy Chief and Captain Gang looked tense, preparing themselves for a possible attack. However, the small zombies seemed to be just playing around, easily dodging all of the Captain Gang's attacks. After a while, Captain Gang managed to find an opening, launching a sword attack that split the small zombie's body in two. However, the separated body quickly rejoined, as if mocking his opponent's efforts. As Captain Gang prepared to attack again, the small zombie pulled the pacifier out of his mouth. In an instant, her small body transformed into a beautiful female zombie, radiating an intimidating aura that was deadly. The Academy Chief and the Gang Captain were stunned. The female zombie, with a relaxed demeanor, took a fighting stance, showing that she was ready to face them with her full strength. The female zombie sat gracefully, her posture creating a seductive impression that was clearly intentional. Her gaze was full of challenge, as if daring her opponents to come closer. In front of her, Captain Gang had prepared himself, now gripping two swords tightly. He stepped forward, full of confidence to face the creature. His swords moved with incredible strength and precision. However, the female zombie easily stopped Captain Gang's attack. She didn't even touch the sword directly, only using the force of air emitted from her hand. When the female zombie's finger gently touched the tip of his sword, a sense of unease began to rise in Captain Gang's heart. In his panic, he shouted, calling for the Academy Chairman to help him. The Academy Chairman reluctantly stepped forward, opening his shirt to reveal his signature battle attire. The advanced battle suit looked like it was designed to withstand the deadliest attacks. However, before he could show off its power, the Academy Chairman was struck by the female zombie's knee with brutal force. Tragically, he was sent flying through the air, thrown far out of the underground base. The Academy Chairman kept soaring uncontrollably, crashing into a tall building before finally hitting the ground hard. At the spot where he landed, Goo and Blackie were standing there, shocked to see a human body suddenly appear in front of them. Goo looked on in confusion, considering whether they should help him. However, Blackie quickly reminded him that they were zombies, not human saviors. In front of them, the Academy Chief lay weakly on the ground, barely conscious. Another explosion sounded from underground. This time, Captain Gang's body was thrown out, landing not far from where the Academy Chief had landed. The two female captains, Lunky and Violet, who witnessed the incident, began to feel uneasy. Their eyes turned toward the underground base, trying to understand what was really happening. Captain Gang, in a weakened state, could only point in a certain direction, signaling that the threat was still there. The two female captains turned around, and in front of them, the female zombie was already sitting casually, looking unbothered. Small grin adorned her face, and she yawned nonchalantly as if mocking them. On the other side of the city, Mr. Zombie and his men were enjoying a barbecue. Dawn, who was always full of comments, noted the oddity of the egg barbecue they were eating. Mr. Zombie just smiled, casually replying that he really liked eggs. Captain Bang politely offered Mr. Zombie some tea. After trying it, Mr. Zombie mildly criticized the taste. This made Captain Bang panic, and he immediately ordered his men to bring the best tea from their headquarters by plane. In the distance, the sounds of battle and explosions could be faintly heard. Mr. Zombie watched closely, while Dawn was still focused on her food, asking about the source of the sound. At the scene of the fight, the female zombie stood on the bridge railing, in a confident stance. A dark and mysterious expression was clearly visible on her face, creating an extraordinary aura of menace. Lunky and Violet stared at the creature warily. They realized that this opponent was different from the zombies they usually faced. Violet, with her sword drawn, stated the need for teamwork to face a clearly greater threat. Lunky agreed, though he remained calm and confident. Meanwhile, Mr. Zombie finally stood up. His face showed that he was beginning to realize something serious was happening. Dawn, hearing the sound of explosions getting closer, stated that the incident was now too close to ignore. Mr. Zombie decided to go and check the situation directly, leaving his subordinates who were still confused by the circumstances. Lunky launched a swift attack, swinging his sword at the female zombie. His strike managed to hit the zombie's cheek, leaving a thin scratch. Not far from him, Violet moved in swiftly. However, before she could launch an attack, a flexible kick from the female zombie stopped her. The zombie's movements showed extraordinary flexibility, forcing Violet to retreat for a moment. Feeling annoyed, Violet moved forward again, this time with a kick aimed directly at her opponent's head. The kick landed squarely, however, it only made the female zombie shift slightly. A satisfied smile appeared on the creature's face, as if mocking the strength that had just attacked her. Violet stepped back with an increasingly dissatisfied look, trying to control her emotions. Lunky then took his turn. His sword flashed with a series of consecutive attacks, each slash precise and full of power. However, every move was easily dodged by the female zombie. Her body moved nimbly, making Lunky frustrated. In the distance, Captain Gang observed the fierce battle. He knew that time was of the essence. While preparing his move, he summoned his advanced battle suit. In an instant, his body was wrapped in the strong armor called Heart of Steel Mark I. With that battle suit, Captain Gang transformed into a gallant robotic knight, wielding two large swords as his main weapons. The female zombie glanced in his direction, her gaze full of interest. Now the creature shifted its attention away from Lunky and Violet, making the two female captains feel slighted. Suddenly, the female zombie stuck out her tongue. The tongue extended in an unbelievable way, making Lunky and Violet step back with shocked expressions. The next transformation occurred. The female zombie began to transform, changing her graceful form into a large muscular male zombie monster. His new body radiated a terrifying aura of strength, as if gender was just a formality for him. Captain Gang, already prepared in his battle suit, looked toward the monster. The two creatures approached each other. Their steps were full of confidence. Violet and Lunky, who were standing in the distance, felt increasingly confused about what they were actually facing. When they finally faced each other, the size difference between Captain Gang in his battle suit and the zombie monster became clear. The zombie monster was bigger. Its body was packed with muscles, writhing under rough skin. The fight began. Both creatures exchanged blows, creating a clash that produced shockwaves so strong, followed by a deafening explosion. Mr. Zombie and Dawn, who were heading to the location, was stopped by the sound of the explosion. As the smoke began to clear, the figure of Captain Gang was still standing. However, his battle suit was badly damaged, and half of his body as well as one of his arms had disappeared due to the clash. In front of him, the zombie monster stood without any significant injuries. The creature declared victory over the gang captain, asserting its superiority. However, even though his body was destroyed, Captain Gang still refused to surrender. With the last remnants of his strength, he stood up, voicing his unwavering determination. The zombie monster, grinning, stared at the wounded Captain Gang. He threw out one last taunt, implying that Captain Gang would keep denying his defeat until he was faced with an unavoidable reality, even if it meant staring straight into the gates of hell. Not far from the battlefield, Mr. Zombie and his group had just arrived. A tense aura enveloped the area, while a strange smell spread through the air, catching the attention of Mr. Zombie, who stood calmly. His gaze was sharp, observing the remnants of destruction clearly visible around the battlefield. In the middle of the arena, the zombie monster stood tall, his body radiating an unshakable confidence. His words implied that his true strength had yet to be unleashed. Hearing that, Captain Gang, whose body was already covered in wounds, could only stare in shock, realizing just how vast the difference in their strength was. The zombie monster began to transform. His large muscular body slowly shrank, changing to resemble a human form with two horns protruding from his head. His new appearance radiated both elegance and terror, making Violet and Lunky, who were still in a defensive stance, unable to hide their shock. Meanwhile, on the other side, Jamie looked panicked. His words to Faye confirmed that they had lost control over the zombie monster. However, Faye, calmly and with satisfaction, accepted the situation as proof that the creature was the true zombie king. Back in the arena, the zombie monster, with full confidence, signaled that the fight did not need to continue. However, that calm moment was shattered when Lunky and Violet launched a simultaneous sneak attack. Facing that situation, the zombie monster gave a mocking smile. With a flick of his finger, he unleashed a powerful shockwave that destroyed Captain Gang's armor, sending everyone around him flying away. The vibrations from the impact shattered the windows of the surrounding buildings, adding to the chaos that was already happening. The powerless bodies of Lunky and Violet were thrown hard, landing right next to Mr. Zombie and his group. Mr. Zombie immediately moved, carrying the bodies of the two female captains who seemed unconscious. Down, who witnessed that, looked panicked. Meanwhile, Captain Bang's soldiers were worried about Captain Gang's condition, while Captain Gang, even though his body was covered in wounds, insisted that he hadn't lost yet. The zombie monster, who heard Captain Gang's determination, just smiled mockingly. His words were full of ridicule, showing how little he thought of that human struggle. At the same time, Violet, who was starting to regain consciousness, warned Mr. Zombie about the true identity of that creature, the zombie king created by Jemmy and Faye. Lunky, even though he was still weak, asked Mr. Zombie and his group to leave immediately, before it's too late. However, the zombie monster didn't give them any time. He raised his hand, commanding the horde of zombies to attack. Loud roars filled the air as the zombie mob fiercely charged toward their enemies. Faye, who was watching the scene from afar, just smiled in satisfaction. For him, this was the moment to prove the absolute power of the zombie king he had created. In the midst of that panic, Mr. Zombie made a surprising move. He threw Violet's and Lunky's bodies to the ground roughly. Lunky, who was still dazed, was confused by this action. Without warning, Mr. Zombie let out a loud scream. That one word stopped the entire horde of zombies in their tracks. The zombie swarm that had been enthusiastically attacking now froze. They stared at Mr. Zombie with real fear. Their bodies trembled. On the other hand, the zombie monster watched the scene with a confused expression. When the tension reached its peak, Mr. Zombie began to walk on the backs of those who were now crouching in fear before him. In his new form that radiated authority, he stared sharply at the zombie monster, uttering a rhetorical question that radiated authority. Amidst the rising tension, the horde of zombies ran toward Mr. Zombie at high speed. However, it was not to attack. They scrambled to bow before him, as if begging to serve as his footing for that figure. Their bodies piled up, forming a small hill, and Mr. Zombie now stood tall at its peak, creating a breathtaking scene. Captain Gang watched the event without confusion, while Lunky and Violet, who were injured, were taken away by Dawn and several soldiers who provided assistance. Mr. Zombie stood arrogantly atop the pile of zombies that bowed to him. His sharp eyes were fixed on the zombie monster, which seemed frozen. An aura of power radiated strongly, making the previously confident zombie monster now shocked by this unexpected sight. However, the zombie monster only smiled and tried to maintain its authority. On the other hand, Captain Gang shouted angrily, criticizing the academy administrators whom he considered to have made a huge mistake by allowing a zombie to become vice captain. Violet, who was injured, replied firmly that it was none of his business. Now, the two powerful zombies faced each other, radiating an intimidating aura of threat. The zombie monster, with unshakable confidence, implied that only one of them would survive, and the title of king would belong to the winner. Mr. Zombie calmly agreed, preparing to face the attack. The zombie monster moved first, darted quickly and struck Mr. Zombie's face with a powerful punch. However, the punch had no effect. Mr. Zombie stood firm, unmoved, and only responded with a cold taunt. Annoyed by Mr. Zombie's reaction, the zombie monster tried to attack again. However, Mr. Zombie launched a powerful punch, creating a shockwave that knocked everything nearby away. Dawn was shocked to see what happened. Above them, a group of zombies could be seen flying through the air as a result of Mr. Zombie's attack. On the other side, the zombie monster, who took a direct hit, was sent flying at high speed. The zombie monster flew across buildings, crashing into everything in its path, until it was finally thrown into the sea and hit a large aircraft carrier. A loud crash shook the ship, causing it to crack and sway violently. The zombie monster lay sprawled on the damaged aircraft carrier, but instead of giving up, it grinned with satisfaction. While savoring the pain, he remarked that the experience was truly incredible. In a short time, the zombie monster dove into the sea, found a submarine, and with its terrifying strength, lifted the submarine out of the water. Without hesitation, he threw it toward Mr. Zombie, creating a terrifying scene. The massive submarine soared into the sky, flying toward the city. Dawn looked on in disbelief, while Violet could only watch in shock. The submarine crashed into the ground with great force, creating a massive explosion that shook the city. Mr. Zombie, who was right underneath it, was now crushed by the giant object. On the other side, Blackie was focused on welding, probably intending to repair the Academy chairman's body that was destroyed by the previous zombie monster attack. Goo stood behind him, watching carefully. Without warning, Goo put his hand on Blackie's shoulder, stopping him from his work. Surprised, Blackie turned around and asked why he was stopped, but Goo just pointed to the center of the city, asking him to see what was happening. Goo said that he sensed the aura of the Zombie King, while Blackie remained silent, saying nothing. Meanwhile, the head of the Academy, who had regained consciousness, grumbled inwardly because Blackie had made his components even more of a mess. On the other hand, Mr. Zombie broke out of the submarine that had fallen on him. He spun quickly in the air, holding a large electric cable, intending to tie up the zombie monster with it. The zombie monster, who was starting to get restless, immediately tried to escape. However, Mr. Zombie used the large cable to make a knot that tied around the zombie monster's neck, pulling it back with incredible strength. Mr. Zombie laughed at the zombie monster's futile escape attempt. Captain Gang, who witnessed the incident, was even more shocked. He wondered to himself, is Mr. Zombie really a zombie? After being dragged closer, Mr. Zombie delivered a hard kick that landed right on the zombie monster's face. The kick pushed the zombie monster's face inward. Its body was hurled into the air. The zombie monster, annoyed by the attack, felt offended and threatened to retaliate in the same way. Mr. Zombie smiled while breaking the cable in his hand, challenging the zombie monster to retaliate. The zombie monster managed to escape and immediately headed for the submarine in the middle of the city. The zombie monster lifted the submarine into the air, intending to attack Mr. Zombie with it. Mr. Zombie just smiled, seeming to enjoy the increasingly intense battle. The zombie monster's attack sent Mr. Zombie flying, and his body landed on top of the aircraft carrier that had previously been struck by the zombie monster. The soldiers near the ship were confused and shocked to see a figure fall right in front of them. They only realized that the one who had fallen was a zombie, and immediately panicked and ran away. Mr. Zombie said in a mocking tone that the zombie monster seemed to have a hobby of hitting people with heavy objects. Meanwhile, the zombie monster, still floating in the air, asked in confusion why Mr. Zombie cared so much about that. He suggested that anyone could throw large objects as long as they had the ability to do so. On the other hand, Goo brought the head of the Academy to watch the ongoing battle. The head of the Academy, in an anxious tone, asked them to retreat immediately, believing that Professor Fay and Jemmy's creation might be stronger than Mr. Zombie. Both scientists were extraordinary geniuses, and the results of their experiments could turn ordinary humans into unbeatable weapons. If they didn't retreat now, they wouldn't be able to survive. However, Blackie interrupted him with a wide smile. Calmly, Blackie asked the head of the academy to be quiet and watch. With full confidence, Blackie said that in this world, no one could defeat their king, not even the gods. On the deck of the aircraft carrier, Mr. Zombie moved at an incredible speed, disappearing from the view of the zombie monster in a flash. The zombie monster was shocked to see Mr. Zombie move so quickly. In an instant, Mr. Zombie was already near it, ready to launch another strike. The zombie monster, growing more restless, felt its body becoming less and less able to keep up with Mr. Zombie's increasingly fast movements. A powerful punch from Mr. Zombie landed right on the zombie monster's face, sending it flying upward with incredible force, breaking through the atmosphere and leaving planet Earth. The zombie monster kept flying, drifting aimlessly in outer space. As the zombie monster tried to regain control, suddenly a ship, a massive aircraft carrier, was thrown at it from the direction of Earth. The zombie monster, unable to react in time, was immediately pushed forcefully. The mothership shot quickly through outer space, pushing the zombie monster along with it until they crashed into the surface of the moon, creating cracks that would likely make the moon no longer beautiful. On top of a rubber boat, Mr. Zombie appeared to grin with satisfaction, his expression full of triumph. Behind him, the soldiers from the aircraft carrier who had previously been thrown without fear were left speechless. The aircraft carrier that was thrown by Mr. Zombie, the zombie stuck firmly into the surface of the moon, as if it were a giant nail, creating a huge crack that spread across the moon. Meanwhile, Captain Bang and the others could only remain silent, not knowing what to do. Dawn observed the situation calmly and stated that it seemed like they didn't need to run away, because no matter where they went, it would be pointless. On the moon, the zombie monster stranded there struggled with all its might to free itself from the weight of the massive aircraft carrier pressing down on its body. It thrashed about in anger, feeling wounds and pain, but it kept struggling to rise. With the strength it had left, the zombie monster managed to push the aircraft carrier back to Earth at high speed, using the moon's gravity to leap toward Earth, while screaming with hatred, challenging Mr. Zombie who was watching from below. Mr. Zombie, who saw the movement from Earth, smiled calmly, then laughed enthusiastically. After taking a stance, he jumped into the air, shooting quickly toward the zombie monster. The zombie monster, who saw the attack, turned and shot inside the large aircraft carrier that was still flying. Inside the aircraft carrier, which had a nuclear reactor, the zombie monster began to mess with the reactor's cables, hoping to blow up the mothership and create a massive nuclear explosion. His efforts succeeded. The aircraft carrier exploded in the air with an incredibly huge blast, right above the city. The explosion was so powerful, the effect pierced through the clouds and created a shockwave that shook the ground. Dawn and the others were shocked and terrified, witnessing the destruction caused by the explosion. Captain Bang immediately deployed a shield to protect them from the terrible impact of the nuclear explosion. Meeman suspected that in this world story, nuclear explosions did not have radioactivity, so it looked like an ordinary explosion, which made it strange. Back to the story. Mr. Zombie landed gracefully on top of a warship, while the other zombie monster landed on another warship, unfazed with his angry expression. Mr. Zombie laughed mockingly. He still looked relaxed, even though there were wounds on his body. With an arrogant attitude, he said that those wounds meant nothing, just a minor itch. Hearing Mr. Zombie's words, the zombie monster became even angrier. Now they stood facing each other on two adjacent warships, as if ready to continue their unfinished battle. On the other side, Dawn and the others tried to recover from their shock. They wondered if this battle would finally come to an end. The increasingly enraged zombie monster shouted loudly, asserting that this fight was not over yet. With the strength that remained, the zombie monster launched another attack. The zombie monster's hand suddenly grew larger and longer, managing to grab Mr. Zombie, then pushed him far into the middle of the city, crashing him into a tall building there. The zombie monster shouted that they should work together, conquer the world, and share the spoils equally, because they were both equally strong. However, Mr. Zombie responded firmly, rejecting the offer on the grounds that he was not interested in destroying the world. The head of the academy, who witnessed the fight, was shocked and said loudly that what was happening before him was just too unbelievable. He then shouted at Blackie, reminding him that even though Mr. Zombie had become stronger after transforming, his enemy was also very powerful. He suggested that they conserve their strength and look for another opportunity to attack. However, Blackie, who was starting to get annoyed, ignored the warning and told the head of the academy to be quiet. With pride, Blackie declared that their king could transform more than once, but actually possessed even greater power than what was visible. Hearing Blackie's words, the head of the academy was even more shocked. He didn't expect that Mr. Zombie had abilities far greater than what was previously thought. Back to the fight. Mr. Zombie grinned widely. He looked at the zombie monster with a fearless attitude and said that cooperating with the zombie monster was not something worth doing. Zombie stood in the middle of the ruins of a tall building's roof. Around him, debris and dust flew everywhere, adding to the sense of destruction that covered the place. His face, filled with annoyance, showed disbelief as he stared at his opponent. The zombie monster, who still seemed to have the courage to talk about half the world. Mr. Zombie responded firmly, voicing his displeasure toward those who always talked about destroying the world or having ambitions to rule it, considering it a sign of weakness. Hearing those words, the zombie monster seemed even more annoyed. Mr. Zombie, who had no intention of compromising, realized that the only way to make the zombie monster understand was to give him a serious lesson. With a rumbling sound, the skin on Mr. Zombie's face began to peel away as his body mutated. His eyes, which were previously black, turned white, while his entire body changed shape, transforming into a more terrifying figure. Suddenly, he let out a scream that shook the air around him. The people who witnessed the transformation were shocked and couldn't believe what was happening before their eyes. Mr. Zombie was no longer the figure they knew, but a man with a cold and piercing gaze. Those who saw him were stunned, confused by the drastic change that had happened to him. Standing tall, Mr. Zombie stared at the zombie monster still standing on the ship. His eyes conveyed incredible strength. That gaze was so sharp it seemed to exert tremendous pressure on the zombie monster, who now began to feel a heavy burden. On the other hand, the Academy head could only remain silent, not knowing what to say anymore. An unimaginable event was now happening right before his eyes. However, Gu slapped him hard, telling him to snap out of his shock. Gu lifted the Academy head, asking him to pay close attention. This is Mr. Zombie, their king. Mr. Zombie stood with great authority, and he fixed a sharp gaze on the zombie monster. Not long after that, the rain poured down heavily, adding a dramatic touch to the ongoing changes. The zombie monster, growing more restless, screamed in anger, feeling cornered and confused about who Mr. Zombie really was. Without hesitation, it dashed toward Mr. Zombie, ready to attack with all the strength it had left. However, Mr. Zombie just stood still, watching the attack with complete calmness. As the zombie monster's punch drew near, suddenly time seemed to stop. All the heavy raindrops hung in the air, frozen in place and unmoving. With a firm and controlled movement, Mr. Zombie raised his right hand up, as if summoning an invisible power. In an instant, the zombie monster's body was sliced into several pieces, destroyed in a flash. With a power beyond imagination, he reversed the gravity of the earth, pulling everything upward. All the raindrops suspended in the air moved in reverse, including Violet, Captain Bang, and everyone around them. All the ships at sea, even the giant sea creatures in the depths of the ocean, were lifted out of the water, as if sucked up by an invisible force. This power trapped the zombie monster. Its body was caught in a void, unable to move or resist. Mr. Zombie stared at it intently, as if making sure the zombie monster was finished. A giant vortex suddenly formed at the battle site, swirling the air with incredible force. Mr. Zombie returned gravity to normal, making everything in the air fall back down. The disrupted gravity caused some sea creatures to fall from the sky and crash into the city, creating incredible chaos. On the other hand, Captain Violet and Captain Lanky fell to the ground, their bodies unsteady, affected by the loss of gravity. In front of them, Mr. Zombie stood calmly. His figure seemed undisturbed by the chaos happening around him. Captain Violet and Captain Lanky tried to get up. Suddenly, the sky above them rumbled and a giant whale fell from the sky, crashing into a large building in the city center. The two professors who witnessed the event could only gape in astonishment. They couldn't believe that such a huge creature could just fall like that. On the other hand, the zombie monster, which had already lost many of its body parts, seemed unable to believe what was happening. Its shattered body made it even more confused and angry. The professors, who were still shocked by this unexpected event, asked Faye if she had ever seen a zombie monster in this condition before. Faye firmly replied that she still couldn't believe she was seeing something like this, considering how tough the zombie monster's body was. However, even though it was in terrible physical shape, the zombie monster managed to get back up, using its regeneration ability to heal its body. Its destroyed body parts started to grow back, along with the anger that kept burning inside it. the zombie monster tried to belittle Mr. Zombie, saying that there was no way Mr. Zombie could kill it. And even if its body was destroyed into tiny pieces, its regeneration would help it come back. Mr. Zombie only responded with a flat expression, showing no signs of fear or worry. Without saying anything, he once again controlled gravity with incredible power. In an instant, the zombie monster's body was lifted into the air, as if sucked in by an invisible force. Mr. Zombie pulled it closer, then began to choke it with gravity, compressing the zombie monster's body. Mr. Zombie kept lifting the zombie monster's body, choking it tightly, as if telling it that death doesn't always come in a visible way. The zombie monster struggled desperately to break free, writhing and pulling its body with all its might. However, Mr. Zombie firmly said that there was no need to destroy someone's physical body to kill them. With a sharp gaze, Mr. Zombie kept staring at the zombie monster, his facial expression growing paler, but even more terrifying. The zombie monster screamed in pain, its body feeling tremendous pressure, as if its soul was starting to be destroyed from within. He saw Mr. Zombie's memories from the era of ancient civilization. At that time, the Earth seemed to be struck by a great disaster. Outside the atmosphere, spaceships were approaching Earth, preparing to invade. The zombie monster trembled anxiously, realizing this was a scene from the time of the ancient civilization. On top of the spaceship stood a figure like a robot with sword-like arms, looking down at the Earth. He ordered the attack to begin immediately. The robot figure declared that this was the 1351st siege. 6 times human civilization had been destroyed, and this time might be the last. On Earth, Mr. Zombie could be seen there, seemingly undergoing further mutation. Suddenly, the spaceships surrounding the Earth exploded and were destroyed. This was caused by Mr. Zombie's attack, who at that moment appeared with long hair, resembling Super Saiyan 4. Filled with terror at Mr. Zombie's mysterious power, the zombie monster screamed in despair. His body stopped struggling, and the zombie monster lost consciousness. The powerful mental attack from Mr. Zombie managed to crush the zombie monster's courage and render it unconscious. It left him in a death-like state. Mr. Zombie stood tall on top of a building, holding the body of the now powerless zombie monster. Mr. Zombie finally released his grip, and the zombie monster's body began to fall at high speed. When the body hit the ground, the earth around the zombie monster's body was destroyed, and its body seemed motionless. The leader who witnessed the event looked very shocked and confused, as if he couldn't believe what had just happened, seeing the zombie monster no longer moving. Blackie thinks that the zombie monster must have been so terrified that it fell so hard after seeing the third form of their zombie king. Faye, who also witnessed the event, couldn't believe what she had just seen. In a hurry, Jamie informed them that all their coastal air defense ships had been destroyed, and they had to leave immediately. Otherwise, they might not be able to escape anymore. Suddenly, Jamie stopped. His eyes widened in fear when he saw Mr. Zombie standing right in front of him. Jamie immediately stepped back, quickly moving away, terrified to see Mr. Zombie standing there with such authority. Mr. Zombie looked at them seriously, making the scientists who had seemed brave before now fall to the ground, trembling in fear. Mr. Zombie asked them a question. He gave them a choice, either surrender on their own or meet the zombie monster. He gave them only 1 second to decide. Jamie, who was supposed to be one of those fighting back, immediately surrendered without saying a word. Faye could only remain silent. She felt upset but also scared. Meanwhile, Mr. Zombie kept staring at her with a sharp gaze that she couldn't avoid. Not long after, Professor Faye and Professor Jamie were captured by the Academy Alliance forces and taken into a detention vehicle. Captain Violet, who witnessed all of this, felt confused by Mr. Zombie's calm demeanor. However, Dawn also didn't know what was happening. Mr. Zombie muttered quietly that his transformation this time was truly terrifying, because he was a different kind of zombie. Captain Violet, trying to understand the situation, told Dawn to approach Mr. Zombie and ask him. However, seeing how terrifying Mr. Zombie was, Dawn immediately refused. He couldn't bring himself to get closer. Captain Violet urged him to go. She said that they would make Dawn the vice captain of the zombies later, with great caution. Dawn tried to approach Mr. Zombie and asked if he was okay, and invited him to return to the academy. Suddenly, Mr. Zombie stood up, surprising Dawn, and making him jump back. Ignoring Dawn's reaction, Mr. Zombie revealed that he was feeling hungry. He casually stated that he really wanted to have a tear-resistant shirt. Dawn sighed, realizing that Mr. Zombie now seemed calmer than before, far from the terrifying impression he showed while fighting. Dawn asked if Mr. Zombie remembered what he had just done. However, Mr. Zombie only replied that he remembered a little of it, even though it all felt blurry. He explained that he had lost his sense of time while in that state. However, he knew that he had defeated many strange zombies like monster zombies. Even so, Mr. Zombie felt that all his opponents were too weak, and because of that he didn't feel the need to remember those battles clearly. On the other hand, Jamie, who was still shocked, asked Faye what had actually happened when he saw Faye laughing to herself. Faye, who seemed to have gained a new understanding, laughed because she hadn't expected there to be a creature as strong as Mr. Zombie in this world. Faye was sure that someday she would be able to get a sample of Mr. Zombie's genes, then use it to create even stronger creatures in the future. Thus, the threat of evil in this world had been defeated, and the story ends here.
Thank you for following the story this time. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this content, so you won't miss updates on other exciting comic storylines. Since I produce everything by myself, it takes time to prepare new videos, so please be patient. If there's a comic you want to discuss, just write it in the comments section. See you in the next video.